In the guest room, Roland kicks off the conversation in this little gathering of big shots. Everyone here should feel privileged. Each person in this room is a key asset to Greycastle, an irreplaceable part of its fleet of elites. In the coming decades, they'll be the ones standing beside Roland, helping to govern the kingdom. All this flattery is a bit too much for Barov, though, who suggests Roland tone it down a little. Roland, meanwhile, feels proud that he's running his state through democracy instead of the outdated feudal rights of the old nobility. To him, only democracy can make sure that capable individuals are the ones participating. That said, there's no guarantee that those capable individuals will always stay loyal to their roles. So, this is just the inaugural of Greycastle's democratic journey. Everyone in this room will be the founding members of the new government. Their performance and accomplishments will be thoroughly evaluated each year. Whether they get promoted or stay where they are will depend on those evaluations. And Roland himself has taken on the responsibility of reviewing these officials annually. If anyone has questions or suggestions, Roland is all ears. But it seems no one has any issue with how things are going. So Roland moves on to assigning roles. But before that, everyone has the option to back out. Those who choose to leave will receive a hefty compensation in golden royals, but those who stay will have to shoulder their duties and responsibilities. With all that said, they're free to make their decision. Silence fills the room, a sign that no one's planning to chicken out of their responsibilities. So, Roland proceeds to appoint each individual to a suitable role. First up is Barov Herman, who's been promoted to Hand of the King. He'll be in charge of coordinating all departments, including his previous responsibilities managing the treasury. Next is Edith Kant, formerly known as Iris, who's now the new head of the general staff. Her department will handle everything related to strategic planning. While the delegation continues, we fast forward to later that day. Roland and Nightingale are alone in the office, as usual. She serves him a cup of tea to make up for the sweat he lost in the meeting. As he sips it, Roland starts giving her these weird, intense stares, the kind that clearly say he's up to something. It doesn't take long for Nightingale to notice the awkward tension, causing her to get flustered. She wonders if she just happens to look really good today. Roland, not exactly an expert in romance, has no idea how to respond without making things even more awkward. He's clearly flustered, a detail that doesn't go unnoticed by Nightingale. She moves in closer, pressing him to spill what's on his mind. Then she fades away after teasing him a bit. That gets a smile out of Roland, seeing that Nightingale is just as cheeky as ever. Honestly, this interaction felt kind of pointless. We didn't really learn anything new. Cut to the wild snowfield. Flying through the blizzard are Maggie and Lightning. They're now less than 100 kilometers from the ruins of Tequila. Turns out, the girls are out scouting, trying to get a peek at what the devils are up to. As they get closer, they begin to hear these nasty, unsettling sounds. And when they finally get a look, they see devils and demonic beasts going at each other. Both of them are stunned. They've never seen anything like it. Now it all makes sense. That's probably why Neverwinter has been so quiet this year during the months of demons. Lightning notices something off. Demonic beasts are usually drawn to magical artifacts. So it's likely the Devil King brought one of those artifacts into this desolate land. Pretty rookie mistake in Lightning's opinion. Now all the demonic beasts are getting pulled in because of it. Still, she figures she might as well have a little fun down there. With a wave of her hand, she unleashes a crackling bolt of lightning that tears through the devils. After taking down a couple of them, she notices something very different. A devil with human features. Lightning can instantly feel this overwhelming presence pinning her in place. She wants to run, but her body won't move an inch. That devil woman is clearly using some kind of magic that's messing with her hard. Thankfully, Maggie starts pecking at Lightning's chest, snapping her out of the trance. Finally able to move again, Lightning realizes she needs to report this back to His Majesty Roland ASAP. The scene cuts back to Roland's office, where he is reviewing 2 letters addressed to the administrative office. Barov had brought the letters personally, believing the king's decision was imperative. The first letter is from Kajin, a renowned master dramatist from the old capital. Kajin once brought his theater troupe to Neverwinter and had hoped to perform a new play at one of Roland's grand ceremonies. Unfortunately, Roland had not approved the performance, and Kajin never got the chance. Roland opens the letter and finds it is an inquiry. Kajin is requesting information about the methods behind shadow magic. If you don't recall, shadow magic is the innovative technique Roland developed for theatrical productions, combining special effects and projection on large screens. In other words, it's a kind of primitive movie. Roland already knows how to respond to Kajin's request, so he moves on to the next letter. Barov explains that the second letter comes from a merchant named Victor Losa, expressing interest in purchasing cotton. Roland immediately finds this odd. After all, Neverwinter is not a cotton producer. Barov reveals the interesting detail. This is a custom request intended to be fulfilled through Miss Leaf of the Witch Union. Sister Leaf's story has long been immortalized in the Witch Diaries comic series, so it's no surprise that foreign merchants are familiar with her. What catches Roland's attention is that Victor is the first merchant to specifically request cooperation with a witch. At that moment, Roland orders Barov to summon Victor to the castle. He wants a private audience. After a brief wait, Victor arrives and stands before Roland Wimbledon. Victor explains that he wants Miss Leaf to cultivate high-yield cotton seeds. With cotton of superior quality and lower cost, he plans to open a new clothing store. Using this advantage, he aims to promote affordable yet quality clothing throughout the kingdom. Since Miss Leaf has already demonstrated the ability to cultivate golden wheat yielding 3 times the average harvest, Victor believes she can similarly triple cotton yields. Cheaper raw materials will reduce clothing costs significantly. Moreover, this venture would save substantial upfront investment and generate over 2,000 jobs. Roland appreciates that Victor intends to manage everything himself, meaning the king would not have to bear any financial responsibility. Gotta say, Victor is the real deal. Not only has he read every newspaper to develop these ideas, but he has meticulously studied every promotional announcement from Neverwinter. Victor's passion alone is reason enough for Roland to take interest. Their discussion concludes on a pleasant note. Afterwards, Roland reflects thoughtfully on how modern machinery can handle tripled cotton processing volumes. With the Losa family's highly skilled tailors, the final products will surely win public favor. Noticing Roland's contemplative mood, Victor offers to explain every detail from the ground up to clear any doubts. But it seems unnecessary. Roland is already vibing with the plan. His only concern is how quickly Victor can arrange the necessary funds to launch operations. At this, Victor lights up like a kid in a candy store. He is ecstatic that his plan has attracted His Majesty's attention. He apologizes for his excitement and boldly compliments Roland on his keen business sense. Roland, meanwhile, feels satisfied. Even without actively seeking investments, someone has stepped forward with a strong proposal. How could he refuse? Later that day, Roland is out in the courtyard to personally bid farewell to his new business partner. Before Victor boards and leaves, Roland has one thing he wants to make abundantly clear. If other merchants decide to copy this same business model in the future, the administrative office will sell the cotton seeds to them at the same price. After all, the more competition there is in the market, the more diverse the products become. The prices will also stay pretty competitive. Victor isn't fazed at all hearing this. Being a Dawn merchant, it runs in their DNA to never fear competition. Roland finds this dude to be quite an interesting fella. With someone like him as an example, the private enterprise should also usher in a period of rapid and lively development. Suddenly, Nightingale pops out of nowhere, with some unpleasant news, of course. The matter involves lightning, and there's not much time to waste. So she grabs Roland and disappears into the mist along with him. In the infirmary, Lightning can be seen struggling. While Roland is dying to know what caused Lightning's condition, little Nana stands there quietly, unsure how to respond. Nightingale rushes to check Lightning's condition and notices that she has sustained an injury over her chest. The troubling part is that Nana failed to detect the injury. No matter how much magic she channels, the wound won't heal. It's as if her powers are useless against this wound. Of course, this news shocks Roland quite a lot. The likely situation is that Lightning was hurt by a high-level devil. To get a better grasp of what happened, he questions Maggie about it. He wants to know everything, from beginning to end. Maggie reveals the sighting of demonic beasts and devils fighting each other on the snowy plains. Then they both encountered a powerful evil that looked very similar to a human. As soon as they were spotted, Lightning froze. So Maggie pecked her on the chest to snap her out of it. If it weren't for that peck, Lightning would have stayed suspended in the air and eventually crashed into the enemies sooner or later. Roland then shouts for Nightingale to call Wendy, Lily, Agatha, and Nightfall. The wound that won't heal seems to be related to that high-tier devil. The only person who can explain this condition is Lightning herself. A while later, Agatha joins them too. They have also managed to wake Lightning from her unconsciousness. It turns out her body is perfectly fine. The reason she was knocked out was exhaustion from prolonged flight. The symbiotic seed helped her recover faster. Roland is more interested in learning about this unhealable wound. Agatha explains that the problem lies in Lightning's magic power. When she checked it with the balance magic stone, she felt a slight abnormal feedback. And that abnormal feedback was almost identical to that of a devil. So what she's saying is that the devil has corrupted Lightning's magic power, even without any direct contact. Nightingale refuses to believe this. After all, she would have noticed the corrupted magic within Lightning right away. Agatha explains that the corruption in her magic is so subtle that it's very normal to overlook it. Though she isn't 100% sure it's actually corruption, it's just what the balance magic stone is showing. The most concerning part is that this kind of situation is unprecedented. While Agatha has seen many unusual occurrences before, like devils who have abilities they can use on others without direct contact, she's never heard of an effect that prevents wounds from healing. If some of Lightning's magic power indeed comes from devils and attaches near the wound, then everything makes sense. Normally, getting close to the Divine Judgment Stone would nullify magic effects, but it turns out this ability isn't that simple. The worst part is, she can't figure out any solution for it either. For the next few days, she decides to stay in the third border city for further observation. Pasha and her team know more than she does, and they might come up with a solution. Prince then turns his attention towards scared Lightning, who's feeling pretty rough. The girl starts to feel intimidated, thinking she's about to get scolded for diving into danger. But contrary to her expectations, Roland merely pats her on the head, assuring her to calm down. A few days later, they arrive at the third border city. There, Roland and the others meet Pasha. The lady has some good news about Lightning. The girl is feeling much better now. Elena has been by her side these past few days. It almost made her forget about the encounter with the high-level devil. Wendy asks if Pasha found out what kind of ability is causing the wounds not to heal. Pasha reveals that the literature doesn't record anything like it. This must be a newly emerged ability of the devil. There are also many similar abilities, and their consequences are quite similar to rare special abilities. And these consequences are called curses. She then takes them into a library stacked with a plethora of books. She pulls one particular book off the dusty shelves and points to certain pages. The book elaborates on how wounds that don't heal themselves lose blood excessively. There were discoveries of abnormal magic in the patient's body. Pasha suspects these abilities might be of the same type, remaining in the target's body and causing damage as time passes. Conventional treatments are ineffective against this illness, and it's hard to eliminate it with external force. Pasha then reveals something very interesting. A witch named Samanja was cursed by one of the higher-tier devils too. In that crucial life-or-death situation, she slayed that devil thanks to her awakening. This is how she was able to free herself from the curse. So basically, if Lightning is truly affected by a magic curse, then killing the opponent might be the only way to lift it. Though it's indeed very difficult, it may not be an easy thing to pull off, but our guy won't sit idly by, at least not until he tries. Before that, Roland wants to understand a few things. If that high-level devil can curse without contact, then what happens to ordinary people under devil's influence? Pasha warns that unhealed wounds pose a constant threat of worsening or even death. Roland then inquires if the Divine Stone of Judgment can counter the devil's influence. The answer is affirmative, but its effects are limited against high-tier devils like the Demon Slayer. Later, Lightning is shown crying in a basement, surrounded by Divine Stones of Judgment. She's devastated by her predicament and desperately wants to escape it. Meanwhile, in the southern Misty Forest, the Neverwinter Army prepares for drills. Everything is set, awaiting only orders. This time, Anna, the head of the engineering department, is in charge and everyone will report to her. They are about to test powerful new weapons developed by Roland and his wife. Anna steps forward, giving the immediate orders to initiate the test. The weapons are massive train-mounted artillery pieces. Iron Axe is awestruck and horrified by their terrifying, deformed appearance. The artillery fires, creating a blast brighter than the sun. Roland and his wife are thoroughly satisfied with the successful test. Iris is also excited, believing this will significantly bolster their chances against the devils in Tequila. She asks for the weapon's name, and after a moment of thought, Roland christens it Black River. This name symbolizes humanity, the Black Team, opposing the devils, the Red Team, who rely on the red mist. In Border Town, we follow an average NPC family. Today, the men of the house are out. The uncle is accompanying his two nephews, who are looking for job opportunities. The uncle already has a well-paying, reputable job, so he is just tagging along with juniors. As they walk, chatting, they notice a recruitment booth drawing a large crowd. It's a limited military recruitment drive, attracting attention because of the limited positions. What makes it even more appealing is that no educational background or ID card is required, only good physical condition. Many are skeptical, as open recruitment typically only happens during the War of Kings. One nephew weighs his options, realizing joining the First Army means lifelong security and even a post-mortem pension for his family. Eventually, he decides to join. His brother is hesitant, but their uncle's encouraging pep talk galvanizes him, and he too decides to enlist. The recruitment begins. Contestants who pass the basic criteria proceed to a booth for a test. The brothers are curious about what awaits them. The older one is confident it will be a physical fitness test. However, unpleasant noises from inside, sounds of distress and gagging terrify them. They dread the worst, fearing it's an endurance test involving torture. The test continues, with a 90% elimination rate. Literally, 9 out of 10 people are eliminated in each iteration. The eliminated individuals appear weak in their legs, despite not looking weak otherwise, which just only adds to their apprehension. Their turn soon arrives. Upon entering, they are greeted by the examiner, who doesn't introduce himself. He believes everyone present will eventually be eliminated. Even if they pass the assessment, it's only the first step out of many. Seeing how stringent the criteria are, the nephew starts thinking that maybe this new force will be a reserved, specialized one. Regardless, the only thing he cares about is the handsome pay. The instructor finally rattles off the rules. Everyone is told to sit on these stools and place both feet on the pedals. All they have to do is stay there for just 5 minutes. No matter what they feel or see, falling off the stool means immediate disqualification. With the instructions laid out, the instructor covers the entrance with shades and lets this magical test begin in the quiet darkness. A blinding light begins to surround the area, and soon enough, the participants find themselves suspended in the air above a vast forest. Of course, with no ground beneath their feet, their natural reaction is to feel like they're falling. But the nephew tries to stay steady and doesn't even let a single muscle twitch in the real world. He knows well that what he's experiencing is just an illusion he has to overcome. He tries to calm himself, focusing his mind to stay optimistic about his situation. He even starts thinking about his loved ones, encouraging himself to push through the test so he can support all the lives depending on him. Eventually, he passes the first test. And if the instructor's honest, his results are way better than the previous groups. Though it's just the beginning, he still has a few more tests to go before he can qualify for the position. Meanwhile, Bro is feeling stiff from head to toe, which explains why those he saw before looked worse for wear. The sad part is, his brother got eliminated. He finally makes it to the next tent to take part in the next round. This time, the test seems to revolve around spinning, since there's a clear carousel in sight. This round got a 10 out of 10 baddie as an instructor. The rules for the second round are pretty similar to the last. Just sit tight and hold on till the end. With that, she presses the button, and the carousel starts spinning the participants. The speed is so fast that all he can see is a blur. He can feel gravity pulling him down, and the spinning pressure weighing on his head. When the test ends, the male instructor congratulates every participant who managed to pass the initial screening. They're told to wait a moment because there's something he wants to drill into every new recruit. Many people join the army for the high pay, but what keeps them motivated isn't just the fat paycheck. There's something way more valuable than money. Everyone will understand this when the time comes, and they'll realize how narrow-minded they were about the importance of their position. With those galvanizing words, the instructor leaves, as many potential candidates are waiting for their evaluation. The nephew didn't expect the instructor to be so welcoming and encouraging, especially compared to his initial behavior. He didn't even bother to introduce himself before. So the guy gathers courage to ask his senior's name. They deserve to know that much after passing the test. The sassy instructor snaps back sharply, introducing himself as Vanna. There's something very peculiar about him, in a good way though. Even the nephew can tell he's extraordinary. In one of the tents, all the candidates who passed the screening are standing before some high officials. Vade seems to be the one in charge of these candidates from here on out. He's quite intrigued to see so many potential knight candidates in front of him. The nephew overhears Vade talking about everyone here being knight candidates. It really gets the guy all contemplative and bewildered. The title of knight is a privilege only noble children get to enjoy, so it makes no sense for a commoner like him to be in such a coveted position. To make things even more complicated, in comes the princess herself. Seeing such a good-looking lowly has everyone blushing brightly. The nephew quickly pulls himself together, and so does everyone else. They all make sure to pay proper respect to the princess. The lady gives them permission to rise. She cuts to the chase, wanting to address every daunting question swirling in everyone's minds. Questions like why the army is making an exception to recruit non-official residents, why the selection criteria are so unusual, or why she is the one explaining everything instead of someone else. While these questions may seem complicated, she's sure they'll understand once they experience things firsthand. So, there isn't much for her to explain, other than a few crucial points. First of all, they aren't joining the 1st or 2nd Army. It's actually a new army Roland Wimbledon plans to build from scratch. It will be entirely different from any army before, so the selection process is equally unique and different. She further emphasizes the challenges that lie ahead for the members of this unique army. Get this, the previous tests they went through were literally nothing compared to what's coming. There are 16 of them standing here now, but only 2 or 3 will clear all the tests and become Sky Knights. Rest of the qualified candidates will be called reserved members. Now it finally makes sense. It seems like my guy is trying to build an air force, which is why anyone who passes all the tests and earns the position will be called Sky Knights. Although he doesn't know the difference between a Sky Knight and a traditional knight, for someone like him from a poor background, the nephew is just glad to get this Ultra Pro Max rare opportunity. And why is she the one explaining this? Because she's got a reason to be here. Only her and her brother know how this new army works. And since she doesn't want her brother distracted from his current duties, she's taken the liberty to be in charge of this recruitment drive. The guy perks up happily upon realizing that Princess Tilly will be the one supervising them. They can barely contain their excitement, and their enthusiasm is clearly visible to the princess. All qualified candidates will train on the shallow beach in the new district. They will also receive new housing and official status, becoming part of the new royal capital. But they should remember one thing. Even as reserve members, you are still part of the army. Their actions will be restricted, and quitting halfway will be considered desertion. Any disobedience to military orders will be severely punished too. Everyone acknowledges her orders, even if they're a little strict. If someone like her is supervising them, then they've got no reason to turn their backs. With that said, the only thing left is for everyone to swear allegiance to the King of Grey Castle. She turns around and leaves, leaving the rest in the capable hands of Wade. Wade pulls out the oath script and begins narrating the crucial lines for everyone to repeat. The whole day goes by and dawn starts to crack. Once the nephew is out and about after all the formalities, he doesn't find his brother Shangguo or his uncle anywhere, which likely means they've already gone back home, so he rushes back too. Upon entering the house, the first person he meets is his sister, She looks totally ecstatic because their uncle had already told her that her brother managed to land a job. Also, on a side note, he was supposed to bring her some tasty cake ingredients, but the poor guy completely forgot because of the euphoric lapse after finally landing the job. He begins describing the significance of his new job, especially that Princess Tilly will be supervising them. She even gave him something special. When he unwraps the cloth, he finds several books inside. The boy has no clue what these books are, so he asks his sister about them. Her name is Rachel, by the way. When she takes a look at the covers, she quickly figures out what the books are about. The book is called Principles of Flight and Operation Manual. The next scene takes us to Roland's office, where Tilly submits the fat stack of applications from those who were able to join. He slides a cup of tea over before asking about the recruitment drive's progress. Tilly is pleased to reveal that everything went smoothly, except for the fact that they got very limited talent. She selected 124 from the migrants and 73 from the official residents, making 200 candidates in total. She fears that these numbers are too few when it comes to going up against the Devils. Roland acknowledges it but isn't dispirited, as it's just part of the process. He's sure they'll get even more applications in the second recruitment drive once they have a few role models representing the Sky Knight Army. You see, the human longing for vast space is ingrained in their bones. Whether imitating birds or using balloons, exploring the blue sky isn't exclusive to the airplane era. The explorers of the Curious Society are the best example. They're always trying different things to soar through the skies. So he's positive this curiosity to explore the sky will attract even more candidates once the Sky Knight Army is functional. First, he needs to prepare a team that can fly. However, training pilots is not an easy task. In the era when flight control systems were immature, pilots valued talent the most. Fear of heights, resistance to dizziness, and physical coordination are just basic requirements. Spatial orientation, understanding aircraft, and even neural reaction speed all determine if someone is suitable to be a pilot. The veterans of the First Army have high obedience and reliability. Selecting a few excellent ones as corps officers is fine, but pulling them all out to form an air force is asking too much. So he still has to rely on these new immigrants. As he's going through the applications, he notices that 6 failed to pass the oath, meaning they're likely spies or people with ill intentions. Nightingale adds that those insincere candidates have already been taken away by Wade for questioning. 2 of them are official residents of Neverwinter. They were all bribed by foreign merchants, hoping to infiltrate the army and gather information about firearms. The police department was dispatched but came up empty-handed, only catching the merchant's assistant left in the inn. But Nightingale didn't just sit idle. She used Summer's holographic magic. With its help, they also found a letter from the old capital. From its contents, it seems a noble is behind all this. She's proud to report that she has already gathered this noble's whereabouts, appearance, and identity. Soraya's drawn portrait has been sent to Tassa via animal messenger, so the arrest of that lousy noble is inevitable. Roland feels thoroughly satisfied hearing the report. He gives her props for a job well done. Since these nobles are unwilling to give up, the Northern Hill Mines are ready to wholeheartedly accommodate them. By now, Roland is sure these nobles will rise up as soon as they get any opportunity, which isn't surprising. After all, feudal nobility has lasted nearly 1,000 years, so making it disappear completely is not something that can be done overnight. Moving the conversation forward, Tilly wonders how Roland plans to manage the shortage of planes now that the pilot shortage has been dealt with. Well, it seems like Roland still hasn't made much progress on that front. So, cunningly, he tries to divert the conversation to a totally different topic, reminding them about the newly released turbulent drinks Evelyn whipped up. He suggests they should go ahead and try them. Of course, his attempt to distract the conversation only annoys Tilly more, who is now dead certain that this deadbeat hasn't made any progress with prototypes. She's furious beyond anything and goes on a full-blown tirade. Before she goes full ballistic, he reluctantly assures her he'll show some results within a month. Well, that much assurance was all it took to calm this feisty lolly down. After having a bottle of turbulent drink, Tilly is on his way. Meanwhile, Nightingale notices a very subtle yet intriguing detail about Tilly. Whenever Tilly is around in public, she always addresses him as brother. But when she talks to him personally, out of everyone's earshot, she rarely calls him brother, though Nightingale doesn't have a clue why that is. Anyhow, the scene cuts to somewhere on a remote island. It's actually our expedition team carried by Azima, searching for more uranium. As they walk deep into the dense forest, they notice a trap laid out meticulously. The Night Lady grabs her blade and throws her sword ahead, triggering the trap, causing a bunch of spears to launch over the target. Good thing they spotted the trap and stopped to check it. Otherwise, many would have been pushing up daisies by now. Despondence blankets everyone as they realize the gravity of their situation. Every vine and branch under their feet could be part of this same kind of tripwire trap. Unless they burn this place down to a crisp, their lives will remain in danger while moving. The only thing they can currently do is take a detour instead of moving forward. Meanwhile, the Night Lady knows pretty well that these traps aren't the work of hunters catching some animal. These traps are likely designed to trap humans. She's ready to take the plunge and goes forward to clear the way, much to everyone's bewilderment. They really don't want her to risk her life like this. But the lady doesn't listen and proceeds ahead, blade in hand. Chaos ensues when a giant boulder comes crashing her way, which she slices through as if it's butter. Damn, this is definitely a 10 out of 10 baddie, not some random NPC you'd expect to see dead after a few panels due to reckless behavior. The path ahead seems clear, devoid of dense foliage or thickets. With her last swing, she dismantles the last remaining traps, giving the crew the green light to move forward. Turns out, she's the divine punishment witch assigned by Roland, which explains why this woman is so brave and intelligent. With that, they decide to continue their journey. A while later, Baldy's bald yet sweaty head greets us, his jaw dropped after witnessing the might of this divine punishment witch. He always had this gut feeling that the warriors sent by Roland Wimbledon aren't weak sauce, but he didn't imagine them to be this outstanding. The divine witch cuts through the chatter and tells Baldy to start rattling off the truth. Of course, Baldy starts sweating in apprehension, as if he has no choice but to spill all the details he's been hiding. The woman demands to know why traps are placed all over the thickets of the mountains. She's smart enough to recognize that these wooden spear traps aren't very effective against beasts, which likely means they're meant for people. Baldy shares the same thoughts and adds that the higher they go, the more traps await them. That's precisely why it's also called Trap Mountain. These traps were left by generations of lords solely intended to defend against the Wolfheart Kingdom. This comes as great news to everyone. Baldy further briefs them about this mountain range that stretches from the coast to the Old Holy City, serving as a natural border between two kingdoms. Since the King of Dawn's terrain is lower, it feels like it's trapped within a cage, which is how Cage Mountain got its notorious name. The main problem lies in the shape of the mountain. The mountain isn't very steep, making it easier to descend. That's why bandits, hunters, and refugees from neighboring countries often infiltrate the Kingdom of Dawn's territories via Cage Mountain. At first, they only scavenged resources in the mountains, but later on, they started stealing and robbing villages, causing panic among local residents. The Lord was also fed up with all the nonsense, so he came up with a permanent solution to combat the situation. Since the Lord didn't need the mountain's resources to sustain his people and economy, he sealed the mountain. After sealing it, the Lord planted fast-growing weeds and vines inside and set up lots of traps. This custom passed down through generations, earning Cage Mountain its name today. The night deepens, but the expedition team continues their trek. Azima reflects on the Cage Mountain situation, realizing that these guys not only blocked intruders, but also trapped themselves within the boundary. If it were Roland Wimbledon, he wouldn't have chosen to do this. That man likes to see the bigger picture and strives to achieve long-term gains. She snaps herself back to focus. She doesn't have to glaze over him. She's simply his employee, doing what she's told, so she better keep her focus on the task at hand. Seems like she's very close to her goal, figuratively and literally too. Her magic has detected the source of the sample she's holding, meaning they are quite close. A trail of light is leading them to the precise location. The Divine Witch decides to go ahead first, making sure there's nothing life-threatening. What she finds leaves her bewildered. Right in front of her is an abandoned ruin, which shocks Azima. Roland had tasked her to find this peculiar element, so it's quite weird that the source led her to an abandoned ruin. Seems like they hit the jackpot, and the Divine Witch is all hyped about it. The underground civilization left ruins all over the continent, and Tequila naturally studied them extensively. But these symbols carved on the walls aren't their script, and they have nothing to do with the magical characters set by the Alliance. So this discovery is entirely new, an unprecedented place they stumbled across. Azima can't make sense of the writing on the walls, even though every word is written clearly and plainly. If these ruins weren't left by a civilization that fought in the Divine War, it likely means that an unknown race lived here in the past with its own culture and everything. It may be possible, but the Divine Witch adds that there are no records or studies hinting that the underground civilization split into tribes and created an entirely new culture and language. Currently, the only thing they can do is get inside and take a look for themselves. After wandering around, they find a stone tablet, which seems to be written in the common language they use. When they read the tablet, it says, "Land of the Gods is cursed and prohibits entry if you don't want to die." Upon reading this, that baldy bastard is panicking out of his wits, assuming the worst-case scenario. The mention of a cursed temple grabs everyone's attention, and they're sure Baldy likely knows something about it. Baldy promptly begins his lore dump. There are rumors that over 100 years ago, when the local lord set traps to stop the Wolfheart people, the knights assigned to place traps one day got caught in heavy rain. They stumbled across a strange temple, which they thought to use as shelter. Even before Baldy reveals more, the Divine Witch knows the rest of the story. She knows they found treasures in the temple, and with the villagers driven by greed, they stole the treasures but were cursed by the gods in return. In the end, they met a tragic fate, one after another. Well, the reason she knows this story is because it's all bullshit. She can bet her life this rumor was made up by the Lord to keep all the riches for himself. As for the knights who found the treasures, they were used as evidence of the curse. But then Baldy adds another twist. Those knights supposedly cursed didn't die immediately. It took about 10 years for them all to die off. It's said they suffered extreme pain until their deaths. Even the skin on their faces peeled off, revealing rotten flesh underneath. To prevent bad luck from spreading, the Lord forbade anyone from approaching that area. Currently, no one knows its exact location. I think I've cracked the code on what this curse is all about. It's fucking uranium radiation. Rather hilarious that Roland forgot to tell them about radiation's existence. Night is already upon them, and after absorbing all this lore from Baldy, the Divine Witch is still not satisfied and wants further clarification. Baldy once again doubles down on what he told them. He heard all of it at the tavern. If they don't believe him, he simply suggests they verify the rumors themselves. Azima begins weighing her options. After giving it proper thought, she starts to believe it might actually be a curse from the gods. One of the guys in charge of the expedition suggests heading back to town first to gather more intel before making their next move. Hearing that these guys are still planning to get inside, Baldy starts losing his bananas. He can't quite believe their objective was to enter the cursed temple to begin with. The Divine Witch knows it's complicated to explain. After all, they never intended to find a temple, it just happened to align with their main goal. Despite the apparent warnings and unwelcoming rumors surrounding this place, they seem to proceed with the plan. They must fulfill the Majesty's orders. The Divine Witch is also hyped to meet this so-called god inside here, who's out here cursing everyone. So they have to prepare to continue their venture. Roland had explicitly entrusted them to approach the source with caution, which just shows he probably knows the danger they're getting into. He gave them 2 routes, and they're supposed to pick only one based on their circumstances. First, if the source is out in the open, all they have to do is seal off the surrounding location and return to Neverwinter. The other option is if the source is inside underground mines or deeper caves, they must prepare for their own protection in advance. While this temple may not look like a mine, it's not that far off either. Just as they say this, someone throws a stack of leather jackets. Right away they start putting them on, though none of them have a clue how these heavy jackets are supposed to protect them. Not only the jackets, but they also have to wear these face masks to make sure they don't inhale contaminated air. Azima finds these suits kinda adorable. The guy in the suit suggests only 5 people go inside, while the rest stay here. Other than Azima and Miss Rosser, who are already tagging along, he invites 2 more people for this journey. Rosser, meanwhile, refuses to wear this goofy-ass suit. For a divine punishment warrior like herself, her resilience and ability to self-heal are off the charts, so some random poison isn't likely to take down a muscle mommy like her. Not to mention, the suit would limit her movements and restrain her senses, so she'd rather skip it than risk everything inside unknown territory with unknown dangers waiting for them. Also, they only have 5 sets of clothes, so it's better to keep 1 spare set outside for a rescuer to wear if needed. Azima fears the consequences if the rumors about the curse and God are true. The Divine Witch isn't fazed at all. In fact, she's ready to face any challenge like the Chad she is. Her unwavering resolve really makes that ordinary human a little worried, though he doesn't argue and proceeds to lead the party inside. Not long after, they're trekking through uneven terrain. The entire place has already been consumed by thick roots sprouting everywhere. It's that muscle mommy who's clearing the path with her godly prowess. With roots penetrating the tunnel from every direction, it's clear this place has been abandoned for a long time. That said, it's also apparent this place wasn't just sealed off right after it was found, just like the Baldy said. For at least some time it must have been bustling with people. There are also torch holders everywhere on the walls. The carved holes are much cleaner than the walls, indicating they were made at very different times. If they were just taking shelter from the rain, there'd be no need to leave torches every 10 steps or so. Rosser isn't surprised this place was an attraction point. After all, if there really was treasure inside, it's impossible the local lord wouldn't be tempted. She also admits the Baldy out there might not be lying with his stories, since rumors tend to get exaggerated over time. For now, they're curious if Roland is looking for the same treasure the local lord was after. If there really is treasure there, he worries if there's even much left in the tunnels for them to loot. Majesty Roland revealed how this treasure is imperative to create the brilliance of the sun, so they can't afford someone else stealing it. Well, they'll only get answers to their questions if they venture further inside. After a short walk, they finally get closer to their target. There's that unusually dark path ahead, likely reinforced with magic. Rosser tosses a pebble into the dark, blocking the path, and as it turns out, the stone just goes right through. After that, she doesn't hesitate before entering this unknown place, much to Azima's shock. Seeing this nerve-wracking, chill-inducing black door, Azima freezes there, forebodingly. This ominous door sparks a profound realization within her, a kind of truth she'd been denying for years. Until now, she thought she was brave. But thinking about it, she's nowhere near as courageous as Rosser or the others who just went inside. That coward inside her is the one who forced her to stay on Sleeping Island and not join the Witch Union. But with her resolve renewed, she steels herself and proceeds to enter. Meanwhile, Rosser is already inside, looking around to make sense of things in the dark. This place is likely the bottom level of the ruins. It's not that big, maybe only 200 steps wide or less. The guy in the background is amazed to hear her thorough assessment of the place, even though it's pitch black out here. Well, after spending hundreds of years underground, it's natural she's adapted to the dark. The woman then asks Azima how much farther they have to go. Azima uses her powers to try to locate the source. The place begins to react to her powers, which clearly means they've arrived at their destination. They're literally standing right at the source. The next scene takes us back to the border town, where Roland gets an urgent report from the King of Dawn. When Roland hears it's from Sean, he jumps out of his seat in joy because it's actually a report from Azima and her crew. Nightingale further reports that the report only contained papers, much to Roland's amazement, who assumes Nightingale has evolved her ability to see through stuff. The girl brushes off such pleasant thoughts, admitting she just sneaked inside and took a look. This, of course, triggers Roland to dread the worst. He fears Nightingale probably knows about the turbulent drinks he received earlier today, which were hidden inside the desert cart. I guess Nightingale's already guilty of stealing those turbulent drinks. Back to the main point, the officer highlights the reports they received, which are covered in this pitch-black substance. Along with these unreadable papers, they also got a letter, which Roland promptly starts reading. The officer asks about the blacked-out papers and what he should do with them. Roland simply orders him to spread them on the floor instead of wasting them. After all, Sean wouldn't have gone to so much effort just to send useless stuff. According to the letter, Miss Azima has found the source she wanted, right at the northeastern border between Dawn and Wolfheart. The locals call it Cage Mountain, but the source isn't in the mines. It's been found inside ancient ruins that seem very old. The fascinating part is the place doesn't belong to any underground civilization, nor is it remotely related to the Tequila fugitives. They had doubts it belonged to sea devils, but Azima's discovery disproved that guess. If anything, they're damn sure this is a relic left by a totally unknown tribe. Roland finds himself reflecting on this perilous development. After all, the existence of another unknown civilization was never mentioned by the Witch Alliance. If a foreign race actually existed in the past, it's unlikely it would have gone unnoticed by the Witch Alliance. So if the contents of the letter are correct, this means this civilization might have existed even before the underground civilization did. The key question is, why was this group so interested in uranium? The letter further mentions murals carved on the stone walls of the ruins' lower levels. The alien races we have seen in paintings don't match the particular race hinted at in these ruins. Miss Rosser and Sean believe this building was likely a place of execution. It's not only located above a source vein, but the builders also fired the ore into bricks used to pave walls and floors. Azima observed the same elements everywhere in the ruins. Even the murals used a lot of mineral materials. Around the lower level, they also found many cages and bones, which are depicted in the murals. They seem to imprison many enemies here, not just aliens, but also those resembling their own kind. Then they tortured them with uranium radiation, as if to please their god. Sean made sure to make rubbings of those murals as best as he could, and had them sent with a messenger from House Tokat to Neverwinter. Since they only have limited protective gear, the process of copying those murals onto paper has been slow. What Sean sent is just a part. Completing everything will take another month or two. Sean also expressed worries in his letter about Miss Rosser, since she entered without protective gear. All he can do is hope she isn't affected by the curse inside. The locals discovered this ruin earlier and caught a strange plague while looting it. Their greed led to their deaths, and so the place was dubbed the Temple of the Curse. Roland feels concerned after reading the letter, prompting Nightingale to assure him that even if the divine punishment witches are cursed, they can just swap bodies to fix everything, so there's no need to worry. Turns out he isn't worried about the divine punishment witches, but about Sean and Azima. According to the plan, they shouldn't stay in the mining area that long. You see, it doesn't matter if uranium is in raw form or enriched. The decay radiation is mainly alpha particles, which are hard to penetrate skin and harm the body. But that doesn't mean it's the same in the mining area. Considering these radioactive elements have existed for hundreds of millions of years, some have decayed into more dangerous elements. For example, with radon, the situation changes. Radon's half-life is only 3 days and it's a gas. It's easily inhaled, causing internal exposure, so shielding is necessary. The protective suits he prepared for the exploration team are designed for deep mining areas. The full-cover outerwear effectively isolates various toxic elements from uranium decay. Activated carbon masks can absorb radon and other toxic gases, as long as they don't stay in the mining area too long. But prolonged exposure to this toxic stuff can overwhelm the mask's absorption capacity, so there's a risk of people inside the mines inhaling toxic substances beyond safe levels. Seeing the urgency, Roland immediately calls for Honey and begins scribbling down the consequences of staying in that place. He wants this letter delivered to them as soon as possible. A while later, we see all those paintings sent by Sean spread out on the floor. Roland is trying to make sense of the murals, while Nightingale notices his no-nonsense attitude and asks why he's so tense. He draws her attention to the rubbings. The scenes in the rubbings feel familiar. Nightingale casually leans over to get a clearer look, causing her big hooters to sag below. This lady seems so numb-minded that she clearly misunderstands Roland's question. The only peculiar thing she notices in the rubbings is the amount of ink used compared to a normal painting. Roland can tell she's a lost cause when it comes to brainstorming. Without complicating things, he insists she get the map of the southernmost region, which she pulls out right away from her mist. Roland notices how the map perfectly matches the rubbings, a revelation that alarms him. Nightingale recalls that the southernmost region is where the Sand People live. Just as she mentions this, Roland spots something alarming in the rubbings. The rubbings clearly show a divine artifact there. I've got no clue what's going on, but let's hope to get clarity on what this divine artifact stuff is about. Before that, we cut to a chamber where a woman, or rather a witch, is being whipped to death. The man in authority arrives and stops the Inquisitors before the woman actually kicks the bucket without revealing anything worthwhile. The man personally confronts the damsel and insists she reveal the whereabouts of the Holy Scripture. The woman's name is Farina, and the man wants her to start parroting everything she knows. Let's cut this guy's crap and get to the point. He's just a random side character who happens to possess a few divine punishment soldiers, which he acquired after the fall of the church. With these soldiers, he planned to take over Duke Island, but most of his army has already been injured or died in battles. Now he wants this thing called the Holy Book left by the last pope, and he wants this witch to reveal its location. His name is Lorenzo, and the witch calls him a traitor. She fought his divine punishment warriors until she couldn't anymore but was captured in the end. However, she was able to chip away at the large number of soldiers this bastard had, so she throws a jab at him about how utterly weak he is right now. That's why he wants the Holy Book, to learn how to produce more divine punishment warriors and maintain his power. All her words crawl under this bastard's skin, who wastes no time bitch-slapping her and grabbing her by the throat in frustration. He threatens her to reveal the location of the book, but the lady's response remains the same. She doesn't know. Lorenzo is done insisting. He orders his men to amputate the limbs of the woman's friend and bring them to him, but this threat clearly fails to faze her. After all, she knows for the fact that her companions had already been killed. The fingers he brought earlier were clearly from corpses. Besides, she's not even the acting pope, so there's no way in hell she's ever come into contact with the Holy Book. That guy Tucker Thor might know something about it, but he never mentioned a damn thing. In short, no one will ever know how to train divine punishment warriors again. But this bastard refuses to believe it. He's pretty damn sure Tucker centered a Wolfheart to rebuild the church and avenge Hermes. If there's no holy book, then there's nothing left to fight against Grey Castle. The witch finds it laughable that this clown still believes he can take down Grey Castle with his pathetic divine punishment army. The current acting pope only wished for everyone's survival and hoped the rest could live in peace. Of course, this psycho power-hungry scum refuses to believe that. He's convinced Tucker didn't give her those divine punishment soldiers just so she could live a peaceful little pooky life in some backwater village. But the woman keeps saying things that really don't sit well with him. He knows full well she's trying to rage bait him, but he's not that dumb. Instead of killing her outright, he decides to drag it out, prolong the torture, and push her to her limits. Later, alone in his office, he's going off the rails, furious that he's gotten 0 leads on the Holy Book. He still wants to take over Duke Island before things go south and hoard all the resources for himself. But that woman won't budge an inch, let alone spill anything about the Holy Book. Suddenly a guy bursts in, claiming he's got some interesting news. Lorenzo isn't in the mood, until the guy mentions it's actually good news. Apparently, there's some unrest near Dawn's border. They're planning to venture deeper into the Cage Mountains. Lorenzo doesn't see the point. No matter which lord takes the Cage Mountains, Duke Island gains nothing from it. That's when the butler adds the real kicker. The ones behind the Cage Mountain expedition are from Grey Castle, sent by Roland himself. Now Lorenzo's paying full attention. He demands confirmation. The butler assures him that this info is legit and has been verified through multiple sources. First, the troops stationed at the foot of Cage Mountain are definitely from Grey Castle. Their uniforms match the distinct style of Roland's army. Second, a death row summons has gone out across Dawn. The gathering point is in the Cage Mountain area, and they're all said to be serving the king of Grey Castle. The Duke takes a moment to piece things together. Then it all clicks in his mind. He had a hunch from the beginning that the ruins in Cage Mountain were tied to the church and the Divine War. But to think Roland is already one step ahead of everyone, that's driving him nuts. The butler drops even more lore. Years ago, some villagers stole treasures from the Temple of the Curse in Cage Mountain. One by one, they died of a strange plague. The treasures eventually ended up in the hands of local nobles. The ancestors of the Earl of Cliff Ridge took interest in it. They believed it wasn't a curse, but something else entirely. Something to do with what was taken out of the mountain. After spending resources and effort, they managed to buy back some of the treasures from Dawn. After some research at the cost of over 10 lives, the old Earl discovered something odd. It looked like an ordinary object, but it emitted deadly rays. A weapon that kills invisibly. But after just a few uses, it stopped working, like it ran out of power, and turned into a dead object. Despite the old Earl's attempts to re-enter the Temple of the Curse, he never figured out how to restore it. So he recorded the story in the family's history, hoping future generations could solve the mystery. That strange item became a family heirloom. Over 100 years later, when Cliff Ridge was conquered by the church, it changed hands. That's when Lorenzo got his hands on it. He tried to tinker with it for quite some time but got nothing out of it. So he packed the treasure away in storage, planning to send it for centralized disposal in the Holy City. But after the crushing defeat at Cold Wind Ridge, the church's stronghold collapsed, and the seized supplies were left unattended. Lorenzo forgot about it until now. With the butler reminding him, Lorenzo gets fired up again. If he can unlock the secrets of that weapon, it would be the perfect alternative to divine punishment warriors. A weapon that kills silently, invisibly, without anyone knowing? That's a dream come true. He starts daydreaming of the glory that awaits. He invites the butler to the supply warehouse, wanting to confirm the relic is still there. After digging for a while, they finally find it, that uranium stone. As Lorenzo stares at it, it suddenly starts to glow, shining with an eerie green light. The Duke's eyes widen with excitement. The damn thing is reacting to his touch, even after lying dormant for over a century. He's on cloud 9, convinced he's cracked it. He entrusts the butler with a mission. Go to Cage Mountain and gather any critical information on how to activate or use this treasure effectively. And make sure not to get spotted by Grey Castle. This operation must stay secret. And honestly, I've got a gut feeling this dude's gonna die, especially considering how closely he's clinging to that chunk of uranium. The scene cuts to a bar. Inside, this redhead dude meets a mysterious guy in a hoodie. The redhead asks him about that witch Farina. The hoodie guy delivers the good news that she's alive. But the bad news is, she's being tortured day and night by Duke Lorenzo. It's so bad that he always hears her screaming from the hall. If this keeps up, he fears she might not survive much longer. Turns out Farina is the leader of the last faction of church believers. But instead of bouncing back and starting fights, Farina wanted to live a normal life, just like the acting Pope Tucker instructed her. However, Duke Lorenzo wants the holy secrets all for himself. The hoodie guy suggests they just hand over what Lorenzo wants. The redhead reveals they don't actually have it. It's been long lost along with the Hermes Cathedral. The hoodie guy decides to head back to the castle before Lorenzo's men get suspicious. The next chance to meet will be in 3 days. For the meeting place, the redhead picks the same pub again. Before leaving, the hoodie guy shares some juicy details about a convoy Duke Lorenzo sent to the Cage Mountains. With that, he leaves. Meanwhile, the redhead starts piecing things together and notices how the Cage Mountain has been mentioned a lot lately. This Cage Mountain has to be the game changer if anything. Acting Pope Tucker left this guy some papers before he jumped off the city wall. These papers contain stories about humans and devils, and the origin of the divine will battle. This shocking secret stuns everyone and helps him understand why Tucker evacuated Hermes. Lorenzo once collected supplies looted from Wolfheart, and the legendary Cage Mountain treasures were reported as a special acquisition. Whether it was transported to Hermes or not, he doesn't know much, but that's not important right now. What's crucial is whether the King of Grey Castle is also searching for it. The Wolfheart nobles might hesitate, but Roland won't. No one can withstand that terrifying army's assault. As long as he can use them to eliminate the traitors, this will give the redhead the chance to rescue Farina amid the chaos. Her cute face flashes before his eyes, making him go all pooky and swoon. We then cut to the third border city, where the tequila witches are trying to piece things together. Even after combing through every record and book, they haven't found a single mention of what Roland gathered from the rubbing sent by Azima and Sean. They're all exhausted searching for clues, but have managed nothing. Roland suggests they take a break, but Pasha's curious mind won't rest until she finds the place. She's amazed by Roland's discoveries. They overturn the entire history of the Alliance. In fact, all recorded human history. Despite collecting so much info over the years, the tequila witches now feel lost, as if they know nothing about this world. Roland assures her it's normal. The more you know, the more you realize how little you understand. In the end, all questions boil down to 3 things: where you are, who you're fighting, and who's fighting you. The witches aren't happy to hear his abstract crap and get the heebie-jeebies, but all the poor guy wanted was to reassure them a bit. He wants them to question who they are, where they came from, and where they're all going. Now that Pasha reflects on it, she's having a hard time answering, even though the questions are simple. The answers change completely with just a slight shift in perspective. Let's cut the mambo-jumbo and move on. Now that they understand the unknown divine will battle from the past, and the new race that existed, it's time to discuss it thoroughly in the next meeting. Everyone should know about it as soon as possible. The ladies are more than ready to discuss everything. The next scene shows every important figure gathered in the meeting hall. Filled with these new discoveries, they all have questions. Tilly is the first to ask about the victor of that divine will battle in the past. It wasn't the devils, nor the sea monsters and underground civilization. Humans weren't the winners either. So who won, and where are they now? Pasha adds that the underground civilization put a lot of emphasis on 2 sentences. Magic makes them extraordinary, and mastering magic is the ladder to divine will. Let's assume all participants in the divine will war could use magic. Perhaps the victor elevated magic to a new level, reaching beyond ordinary people's sight. Roland respects Pasha's opinion, but figures her assumption has a lot of loopholes. Still, he appreciates the input. Something is better than nothing. Normally you'd assume the stronger a civilization, the longer its traces last. Ancient people built houses with thatch and mud, which weathered to dust in 1,000 years. But the concrete buildings of Neverwinter, even after 1,000 years, still leave outlines. So a civilization capable of winning the Divine Will War vanishing after victory doesn't make sense. We only know of their existence from scattered ruins. If victory still can't reverse the fate of extinction, then it means a divine war is too deadly to engage in, enough to shake everyone's resolve and make them think twice before indulging in one. Iris then chimes in, since the murals date back at least 1,400 years, humanity's experience can't truly be called the first Divine Will War. So Roland decides to rename this old Divine Will War to avoid confusion. He temporarily calls it the War of the Lost. As for their current plans, he wants to proceed with exploring the Cage Mountain ruins. This is the only way to achieve victory in the upcoming war. Only by winning can they unravel all the mysteries surrounding them. This time, he plans to drive the devils out of the fertile plains completely. This is for expanding Neverwinter and laying the groundwork for their final victory. The scene cuts to Roland having tea with Thunder. It seems the time to explore the Shadow Sea has finally come for Thunder. Roland is kinda jealous he can't join the journey. Thunder feels proud, claiming this will be the largest expedition in the Bay Islands history. He's already gotten used to the steel ship, so there won't be any problems mid-journey. It's all thanks to Anna, who improved the ship based on his feedback. Anna asks Thunder for one thing. Since the ship has only done shallow water trials, she wants thorough reports once he begins deep-sea travel. She advises him to use Neverwinter's new waterproof ink and sealed pouches so the reports survive the harsh, unforgiving sea environment. Roland also has a favor to ask. Actually, he wants to recruit a team of adventurers, unrelated to this expedition. Roland plans to designate this new team to explore only the Cape Endless. Margaret points out that the place is nothing but sand and black water, so why spend resources? Roland used to think the same, but the Endless Cape hardly encounters any risks, so no need for experienced experts. It's more about numbers than skills. Thunder points out there are many such people in the bay, but he isn't sure if they'll pass any selection criteria. Roland reveals there are no selection criteria. Anyone can be called an explorer as long as they discover a new artifact at the Endless Cape. For their discoveries, they'll be rewarded accordingly. Even just a piece of a relic counts, but it must come from the Endless Cape. With that sorted, Thunder asks the name of the steel ship now that it's passed sea trials. Roland names it Snowwind. Thunder already likes the name but thinks it sounds too cute for a ship that looks like a total beast. Roland believes the name perfectly blends harmony and gentleness, the kind that wisdom carries. More importantly, the name has an auspicious meaning, which will bring good luck to the voyage. The time for Thunder's voyage finally arrives. His crew includes that mermaid witch who's all teary-eyed after getting separated from her witch association friends, Lightning, Maggie, and Lorgar. The next scene takes us to Lorgar's father, who looks troubled. Turns out he just saw his daughter's poster plastered all over the city walls. He finds the whole showbiz scene humiliating and a stain on the Blazing Flame Clan's status. But contrary to his conflicting thoughts, the crowd's reaction surprises him. They're all fascinated to see Lorgar as the main star of the movie. Seems she's already got a lot of faithful fans who would die to watch her shows. The father is amazed that everyone appreciates Lorgar, rather than despising her because of her appearance. He's already started to see things the way Roland does. He lashes out at his son for thinking negatively about her situation, now that his perspective has changed. He angrily pushes his son to go buy tickets for the Shadow Magic show. The crowd is dense, with people from every corner of the city coming to join the fair. There seem to be multiple activities going on, including a running race. The doting father is so hyped he literally cosplays as his own daughter and joins the race. Meanwhile, the brother feels utterly pathetic. He never gets the kind of attention from his father that Lorgar gets. He's not sure if he can ever beat her in life. Just as he's feeling hopeless, his father comes to him and asks him to run in his stead. After all, he is getting old, so running isn't for the old. Only the younger ones should participate. The father even makes sure to put wolf ears and a tail on his son. He reminds him Lorgar is still family, no matter if she left home. He wants his son to represent the Mojin people and make a name for her by acing the race. The brother understands the depth of his father's words and promptly starts sprinting ahead of everyone. He's glad his father's been watching him after all, meaning he isn't as neglected or undervalued as he thought. All his past efforts weren't in vain. His father has always been watching from afar. At the finish line, we see a few familiar faces arriving. One of them is Knight Carter, wearing a red cape with a royal emblem. Meanwhile, Wade carries Honey around, who's writing down every significant detail for the next day's newspaper. As the contestants are struggling against each other to reach the finish line, Honey makes sure to write this significant moment in her journal. Let's shift perspective to Knight Carter, who looks utterly exhausted and out of breath. That robe he's wearing is heavy as hell, making his movements sluggish. Still, he can't give up the race for the sake of his wife, at least not now that the finish line is so close. Just as it seems within reach, they notice one contestant dashing like a damn bullet train. What's more striking is the beast cosplay this dude is rocking, as if imitating a wild beast will grant him strength and speed. It sounds ridiculous to Carter that a guy in a stupid outfit is overpowering them like this. And as expected, the brother of a famous star manages to take second place, putting poor Carter in third despite running fast in that heavy robe. By the way, Lorgar's brother's name is Rohan Fanhua. Meanwhile, Roland announces the first place winner, Kai from Longsong District. Carter is bawling, realizing that this woman was so far ahead they didn't even see her cross the line. Barov thoroughly enjoyed the race. Even Ambassador Petrov had the time of his life. While Petrov enjoyed the race, he's sad only one participant got a commemorative badge. Barov thinks it's perfectly fair and normal. This sparks a little argument between the two officials, with Roland watching from the sidelines. One sees things through a diplomatic perspective, the other considers people's feelings over rigid systems. I think we're taking Barov's side here for once. This girl Kui earned her win through sheer hard work. She used to be a street rat, but once liberated, she became a proud mail carrier, running through the streets and alleys of Chang'e Fortress every day. This job helped her reach the finish line earlier than anyone else, and thus she brought a win to her district. Suddenly, Anna appears, asking if sports events are similar to this in his world. She also points out how he was zoning out in the first half of the race. Roland had been thinking about something missing, a commentator and live broadcasting. He explains broadcasting and commentary to her as the day passes until dawn. People gather in the city center, with Roland about to announce something crucial. A crucial war needs an inspiring start, and now's the perfect time to boost morale with a pre-battle speech. First, he boosts people's morale by reminding them how far they've come. What used to take weeks by carriage now takes a single day. That's why people from every corner of Neverwinter can join this fair. He assures them that steam trains, bicycles, and more are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot they'll achieve. The word impossible is just a relic of the past, and this race proves it. The crowd fires up, believing impossible doesn't exist so long Roland is around. It is then Roland slips in the day's main highlight, the war with the devils. He reminds them the war has reached a crucial moment. After today, the First Army will march to the Fertile Plains to launch a second attack on devils entrenched in the city of Tequila. These enemies are brutal and insatiable. Their minions turned prosperous human empires into blood-soaked wastelands. Innocents were slain in the tens of millions, enough to fill Neverwinter with bones. He believes they must fight before disaster strikes everyone. Neverwinter can now fight them on land, sea, and sky, until the devils are gone and no enemy can threaten humanity's pace. He's also grateful for the contributions of the Mojin people and those from the Bay and other kingdoms. This means everyone is setting aside prejudice and barriers, connecting further. He hopes this continues. To the devils, it doesn't matter your age, gender, or belief. They only care about total slaughter of mankind. So this isn't just Grey Castle's war. It's a war for all humanity. When fear grips anyone's heart or they want to retreat, they should think of today's miracle. As long as everyone holds faith, repels danger, victory is within reach. To emphasize how honorable it is to work hard and win, Roland calls the top contestants, one winner from every game. They will receive the honor they deserve. The audience erupts in applause. The doting father feels pumped up. He's so proud of his son he wants him to stand with the other 10 champions. He may not be the cream of the crop, but he fought for whatever he could get. For this the father is glad. This makes the son crack a smile, feeling happy to finally be recognized by his father. Later, Roland and his core members regroup in the strategy chamber to plan the next major offensive against the devils. Once everyone takes their seats, Roland officially declares, "The war has truly begun." This looming threat is no longer just a military matter. He wants every manager from the kingdom's institutions and each department in the administrative hall to have a clear grasp of the war situation. Everyone must stay proactive and fulfill their roles accordingly. If they don't take the Tequila ruins, the red mist could engulf the entire continent, and at that point, nothing will be able to stop the devils. So, losing is simply not an option. With that clear, it's time for the general staff to present their strategy. Iris steps forward, drawing everyone's attention to a large map of the continent. This map has been updated under Roland's instructions, now clearly showing how little of the world is still under human control. He hopes this perspective will push ministers to look beyond short-term concerns and broaden their vision. That's likely one reason why Roland decided to revise it. First, they need to understand that this northern expedition isn't like anything they've faced before. The outcome won't be decided in one swift stroke. This will be a long, drawn-out war, and Iris wants that drilled into everyone's heads. Baldy Bravo raises a question. Does she have an estimated time frame for when this war might conclude? Iris explains that it depends entirely on the strength of the Devil's counterattacks. The general staff ran several simulations, with help from the Tequila Witches, assuming the enemy attacks would match the scale of the Northern Hill battle. If things go well, in 3 months, Neverwinter's cannons could be pounding directly on the enemy's front lines. But the Devils aren't fools. They won't keep repeating the same mistakes. Sooner or later, they'll realize the strategic importance of the railway lines. However, Iris is already preparing for that possibility. Since the situation is unpredictable, she urges the administrative hall to allocate resources for worst-case scenarios. The worst case? The war stretches from spring to winter. And then, during the months of demons, they'll still have to keep fighting. But as long as they don't retreat, the result will be a stalemate. And when the snow melts, the war will pick back up next year. That said, the chances of this exact scenario aren't high. After all, devils can't outbreed bullets. Barov decides to start stockpiling food reserves from neighboring territories. Golden number 2 seeds have been distributed throughout the kingdom, so unless something goes terribly wrong, this year's harvest should be solid. If they collect it all, it should meet the First Army's needs for at least a year. He also recommends adjusting the work of the chemical department to maximize production of gunpowder and explosives. Iris adds that simply destroying the devil's base isn't enough. Neverwinter must completely eliminate the enemy. This means before launching the final assault, they need to ensure every single route for the enemy to retreat is blocked, on the ground and in the skies. Only witches can ensure this, because of the threat the high-tier devils pose with their curses. There's a particular high-ranking devil among the enemy who can cast long-range spells, and Roland doesn't yet know how to counter it. He suspects it's similar to the church witch's Black Veil. If the First Army gets cursed, even victory would be a tragedy. So, to ensure the devils have nowhere to run, they must destroy the mist towers and cripple the enemy's war potential. That is the main purpose of this expedition. The operation is codenamed Torch, symbolizing both the light of hope to destroy the devils and the blazing flame that will illuminate the fertile plains. With all plans laid out, Roland expresses his hope that everyone will do their part to bolster Greycastle's strength in the war to come. The scene then shifts to the training site, where the newly delegated Air Force is busy with their usual drills. Most of the training revolves around balancing at heights, or exercises meant to build tolerance against motion sickness. Out of everyone doing these activities, only one person manages to complete the tasks properly. So the instructor starts hammering the others for their pathetic performance. If they don't take this seriously, they might end up getting fired before their careers even begin. Some guys whisper under their breath, questioning if they can really become Sky Knights just by training on the ground. The instructor overhears this, which annoys him since they're doubting the training regime. But today, he's excited to announce that they'll finally get the chance to experience what being a Sky Knight is really about. Though he warns them that wetting their pants isn't allowed. With that, they arrive at the edge of the hill. There, Roland and the others are gathered for the inauguration of the first military plane, the one that will mark the beginning of an entirely new era. Anna and Tilly are supposed to fly this plane and let the Sky Knights witness what the Air Force is all about. Once everything is ready, the takeoff sequence begins. As the plane runs down the runway, the Sky Knights eye this huge chunk of metal, confused about what it even is. But moments later, the plane takes off and zips past them, startling everyone. Seeing this, their resolve to become Sky Knights deepens, exactly what the instructor had been hoping for. As Roland watches history unfold, he feels a swell of pride. He knows very well that he is going to make history in this world, and he truly wants to be on the front lines in the Divine War, to witness the history write itself. Right then, Nightingale pops up and scolds him to shake off that thought. There's no way Wendy and Skrull would ever agree to let him be on the front lines. Maybe they're right, but that's exactly why Roland wants to adapt to the harshness of war. Moving on, he tells Nightingale to gather everyone. It's finally time to head to the third border city to check the results. The scene cuts to the third border city, where Roland meets Kyle Seachy. The mad scientist seems to have solved the problem he was working on. Turns out, Kyle has been producing napalm, a highly flammable, easy-to-carry liquid substance. Against the devils, this stuff could be a massive game-changer. The red mist fears fire, and if they can set things ablaze without much effort, the mist that the devils rely on will turn into a noose around their necks. Just as Roland reaches for the gelatin, the scientist warns him to stop because it's highly corrosive. Roland had assumed it was non-toxic, like rubber, but Kyle reveals that the added blood has changed its properties. Of course, Kyle hadn't been casually experimenting with his blood. While cutting waste rubber strips, he accidentally sliced his finger, and some blood dripped straight into the contaminated sample that was in the process of coagulating. He may be crazy, but he wouldn't intentionally test things on himself. Roland worries that without blood, they might not be able to mass-produce napalm. But Kyle reassures him that animal blood works too, and he's already tested it. Though there's one catch, the blood has to be freshly drawn. Roland asks why it has to be blood specifically. That's when Pasha chimes in, adding her thoughts. She suspects it has something to do with the bugs themselves. If you're wondering how those alien bugs are connected to this, then remember, Roland has been farming them to extract that white, slimy mucus which helps produce rubber. And now, the same stuff is being used to create napalm. The bugs aren't under the demon's direct control for now, but their instincts remain. The urge to capture and store prey is still embedded within them, and fresh blood seems to be a trigger. Roland decides to proceed with testing the new weapons. But before that, Pasha wants to invite a special guest to witness it. Roland is shocked when he realizes who she's talking about. It's the devil they captured. The devil never refused food or water. In fact, he devoured everything given to him without question. Almost a week later, we're back at the third border city. Outside the main gate, Roland waits while the tequila witches emerge from their caves after a long, long time. Celine feels the warm sunlight on her skin and breathes in the pleasant smell of flowers. The last time she saw a blue sky was 200 years ago. Roland also brought along some monocle guy. No idea who he is. It's his first time seeing the tequila witches, so naturally he's confused and nervous. Roland assures him that these girls used to be human just like them, and that they're speaking directly into their minds. That's why they can hear them without any words being spoken. Roland tries calming the poor guy, but it's no use. So my guy keeps explaining about the witches' new appearances, dropping all kinds of info. After feeding the guy with a lot of info, he wonders if he should even explain more. Of course, the old man quickly says no, he's already heard enough. Then comes the special guest Pasha had mentioned, the devil bound in chains and ropes. We also finally learn his name is Radabi. While the bastard rages and spits venom, Roland feels proud to announce that the fireworks this bastard is about to witness were arranged specifically for him. The devils had always looked down on humans, seized their land in the Kingdom of Dawn, and reduced countless settlements to ashes. This little firework is humanity's testament that they're bouncing back, and they will reclaim what was lost. With that, Roland orders his men to prepare for the experiment. Once everything is set to blow, everyone is instructed to take shelter in the bunkers. Inside, the knights begin the ignition countdown. When the clock hits 0, a massive explosion erupts, obliterating everything within its enormous blast radius. The devil is getting the reality check of his life. The others are equally stunned, witnessing such raw destructive power. The tequila witches too see this brilliance as a spark of hope for the divine battle ahead. If only they had weapons like these back in the tequila era, humanity's victory would have been inevitable. The three of them shed tears of joy, feeling their long-awaited goal inch closer. Hours later, the bunker doors finally open. The devil had been chained right at the entrance, forced to get a good taste of what absolute power feels like. The scene then shifts to a construction site, where railway tracks stretch for miles across the land. Molly and Sister Leaf are there, helping with their abilities and speeding up the work exponentially. Thanks to Molly's help, she's become a favorite among the workers. In another part of town, someone lectures students about demons, their types, their strengths and weaknesses, and how to exploit those weaknesses. On the construction site, Anna suddenly arrives, drawing everyone's attention. Even Molly starts idolizing her, wishing to be like Anna someday. When their eyes meet for a brief moment, Anna gives her an encouraging gesture, making Molly feel important. Her heart practically swoons. Not long after, Molly hears familiar voices behind a stack of bricks. Turns out it's Andrea and the others slacking off mid-duty. Molly's furious, but Andrea tries to smooth talk her way out of it. But the angry girl doesn't budge, reminding them that if anyone finds out, it could ruin the image the sleeping spell had built. So, she decides to report them to Princess Tilly. Xavi argues she was only taking a short break after hauling all those bricks from the train. Andrea further cements this idea, insisting short breaks are important for the job. But before the argument can continue, chaos erupts. A site worker notices an alarm, an enemy has been spotted. Molly quickly climbs the bricks for a better view, but nothing is visible yet. Xavi thinks it must have been Sylvie or Lightning who spotted the enemy because no normal human could see from that distance. Molly instantly worries about Princess Anna, but Xavi reassures her that the princess already has reinforcements. Even if a high-speed devil is involved, they'd still have 10 to 15 minutes to prepare and hide. In emergencies like this, safety takes priority unless combat orders are given. Andrea quickly calls Sylvie for a report. Turns out, Sylvie didn't notice anything. It was Lightning who raised the alarm. The enemy force seems small, only 4 berserk beasts, with no signs of high-tier devils. Hearing that, Andrea assumes their presence here might just be coincidence. Maybe so, but Sylvie warns everyone to stay sharp regardless. And right on cue, the devils appear in the skies above. They hover in the air, as if hesitant to move forward. Andrea readies her sniper rifle. But the devils are way too far. Only a high-caliber gun could reach. To use that, she needs Molly's magical servant to carry it. Andrea may have been slacking off earlier, but she wasn't unprepared. She always keeps weapons ready. And thanks to Maggie, transporting this heavy beast of a gun isn't a problem. Molly promptly conjures her fluffy magical servant. The slime-like creature hoists the massive weapon onto its head, acting as a firing base. Andrea climbs onto it, locks onto her target, and fires. The shot is deafening, causing Molly's ears to nearly pop out. But the explosive round smashes into its target, dropping the beast instantly. Seeing their fallen ally, the remaining devils retreat immediately, much to Xavi's shock. It looks like the enemy has learned how to deal with snipers, which is alarming. Molly's ears are still ringing from the blast. Andrea apologizes for the inconvenience, promising to make it up to her. Since it wasn't intentional, Molly is willing to let it slide. Still, the brash noble insists on repaying her. She offers Molly free turbulent drinks under one condition. Normally, Andrea charges a turbulent drink whenever she beats someone in a card game, But this time, she's making an exception. If Molly loses, there's no penalty, but if Andrea loses, she owes Molly drinks. For a moment, the girl considers it, but quickly snaps back. Playing cards is nothing but laziness, and she's totally against it. So she outright refuses. A few days later, we meet the Pearl of the North along with Hunter Iron Axe. Iris had been trying to figure out the motive behind the devil's appearance, but she hasn't gotten any leads so far. Though she's certain of one thing: if the enemy really has some sort of plan, they'll definitely act in a few days. And just like she said, the devils appear 4 days later. Back in camp, Iris and Phyllis are once again piecing things together. So far, Sylvie has confirmed that there are no other devils nearby, and the current location of the devils is even further than last time. No high-ranking devils have been found among the known enemies, and the anti-aircraft machine gun team is prepared for the next encounter with the devils. Continuing railway construction as usual may result in the largest losses among the rail transport team. Though one guy argues that the benefits of continuing construction outweigh the losses, Roland had always expected the devils to eventually figure out the plan behind the railway construction. And as for the recurring flying devils, minimal monitoring is enough to keep them in check. With all that said, Hunter Iron Axe plans to resume construction of the railway. The anti-aircraft machine gun squad should stay on high alert, while everyone else stands by as usual. Iris believes that letting those devils spy on them isn't a good idea. As far as she's concerned, the 2 flying girls they've got are quite capable fighters. So with Andrea's help, there's a high chance they can catch them all at once. Agatha, however, worries that fighting more than 2 devils in the air might turn deadly. If the enemy launches spears at once, it's going to be tough to dodge at point-blank range. Even if Andrea takes 1 devil down, there'd still be 3 left, endangering both girls' lives. But Iris proposes a new solution. She suggests using the magic ark's ability to conceal themselves and letting Andrea strike when the opportunity comes. Agatha agrees with the plan and decides to inform the special operations team about it. Day 1 arrives, and they manage to take down the devils. Day 2 comes, then day 3 as well. They manage to nail their tasks, but the only thing worth noting is Lightning's little to no input in this operation. On the night of day 10, the girl can't sleep properly. The nightmares of that evolved devil she faced still haunt her. She suddenly wakes up, throws off the blankets, and takes flight. But she can't stay in the air for more than a few minutes. This shit has taken such a toll on her that she can't even handle an ordinary devil now. She feels useless. A person scared stiff by devils has no right to be the expedition leader. At least that's what she thinks. As she's feeling pathetic about herself, Lorgar shows up, snapping her out of those limiting beliefs. She looks a little tired herself, which clearly means she's been training out here. So their encounter is just a coincidence. Since she isn't a transcendent witch with insane power, she's got to train. If she doesn't exercise daily, wielding her wolf form really takes a toll on her. She'd been told not to wander around due to the lingering devil threat, so working out at midnight is her only option. Lightning suddenly feels embarrassed, thinking Lorgar heard her whining. Since our wolf girl isn't a softie like Wendy, she doesn't really know how to comfort people. But she does have an inspiring story to tell, and it follows her father as the main character. Before becoming chieftain, her father was actually very reserved and didn't even dare to join group hunts alone. When her grandfather passed the chieftain position to him, he gave him a bit of wisdom. One person alone may not achieve much, but with the clan by his side, he's the strongest warrior. So he was told to avoid situations where he's left without companionship. That belief of sticking together became the clan's norm for generations. Her father probably wanted to pass that same lesson down to her with his stories. Courage comes from within, but you can also draw it from others. With that in mind, no one necessarily has to rely only on individual bravery. Just like Lightning tries her best to help her teammates through tough situations, she should also learn to seek help from others too. Her words leave a deep impact on Lightning, so much so you can already see the change in her. Suddenly, Lorgar's sharp ears pick up whistling and rustling around the corner. She quickly shuts Lightning's mouth before she can say a word, but before Lorgar can explain, trouble presents itself with a massive blast. The enemy is launching a surprise attack with spider demons. Lorgar quickly notes that most of the explosions are coming from the fortress artillery positions. Lightning decides to warn the others before it's too late. But shit gets worse. Lorgar's thigh gets pierced by a shard of concrete. Of course, Lightning feels responsible for this. But Lorgar says otherwise. Even if they hadn't run into each other, she would have been attacked regardless. Her bones are broken, and with blood pouring fast, there's a high chance she's hit a major artery. If the spider demons attack again, Lorgar would be a helpless target. She insists Lightning go back and contact the guy who runs the Black River. Black River is their train's name, by the way. There's no point in making an announcement. The explosions are already loud enough. It's time to prepare for a counterattack. If what she hears is correct, at least half of the enemy's attacks are aimed at the fortress cannons. And if the enemy succeeds, that'll cause massive damage. So she pushes Lightning to take flight and bring Black River. Without wasting a second, Lightning takes off and finds Maggie back at camp. Of course, Maggie's got a lot of questions about where she's been and what she was doing. But there's no time to explain. First, she's gotta find Black River and take it there before devils ruin everything. Maggie insists on tagging along, but Lightning advises against it. Sylvie can't possibly manage the entire camp alone. They need as many scouts as possible keeping track of devil movements. She also tasks her with finding Nana and taking her to the end of the railway, since Lorgar is badly injured and needs immediate healing. Maggie is reluctant to let her friend go alone, but Lightning convinces her otherwise and flies off to find the man in question. Meanwhile, the enemy continues its relentless barrage of spears, causing massive destruction. The earthquake even wakes the workers. Instead of panicking and flailing around, one of the wise ones insists they lay low until the attack is over. Afterwards, he lights a candle, only to find a shitload of spider demon spears lodged in the ceiling. They head outside, where the divine punishment witches are already locked in intense combat against the devils. A soldier takes aim and shoots the bastard right over its head. Suddenly, giant capsule-like objects crash to the ground. Soon enough, red mist spreads across the area, and high-tier devils emerge from the capsules. The soldiers raise their guns and fire at one of the high-tier devils, landing a shot right on its chest. But the bullet doesn't even leave a scratch, let alone cause any damage. As the devil steps closer, a divine witch blasts it with a high-caliber gun, making the bastard recoil backwards. The devil snarls at the mortals to stand back, insisting they're no match for someone like him. He then proceeds to draw his sword. As intimidating as these bastards are, the divine witches don't show a hint of fear. After all, they've been waiting for moments like this all their lives. Meanwhile, Lightning is on her way back with reinforcements. This train is equipped with weapons, making it their reinforcements. She urges the driver to go as fast as possible, but the driver worries the pressure is already high, and adding more coal could make the boiler explode. He tries to reassure her, saying the First Army won't be defeated that easily, even against devils from hell. The man is just as worried as she is, since his loved ones are also in the camp, in dire need of reinforcements. She decides to go on ahead and bring the good news that help is on the way. A while later, they finally spot devils rushing toward the train. The train promptly opens fire, mowing down the devils. Somewhere in the camp, Princess Anna meets Hunter Ironaxe. The man looks devastated as he admits they've walked right into the enemy's trap. First, Anna asks the commander to drop the formalities, then tells him to brief her on the camp's situation. Sadly, the commander says things are grim. According to night reporting, over 200 are dead and nearly 700 wounded in the First Army from last night's raid. This is just a rough estimate, and it's subject to change since Miss Nana can't possibly tend to so many injuries at once. The numbers the knight just gave aren't reassuring at all. In fact, this might be the greatest loss Neverwinter has faced since the church battle. No wonder Hunter Ironaxe looks particularly downhearted. During the meeting, Anna suggests sending Maggie to support the front lines. With her there, the medical team could potentially save more people. She then addresses the elephant in the room. How the hell did the devils show up without anyone noticing? Sylvie fears the enemy might have exploited blind spots in her magic eye. Previously, the enemy only sent terror beasts just to test her scouting range, and she didn't realize it. It seems like ever since the Northern Hill battle, the devils have been aware of Sylvie's presence, something our party should have figured out too. The devils basically judged the approximate range of the magic eye through our party's defensive reactions. Afterwards, they sent their main forces to the farthest edge, launching a sneak attack during the night. But the knight argues that blaming themselves won't help. To lift everyone's mood, Iris points out that the devils eventually retreated, so we shouldn't act like they lost the war. Then again, we can't just ignore the 200 casualties either. Iris, however, gives her fellows another perspective. With the sacrifice of 200 soldiers, they managed to take down more than 50 devils, including high-tier ones. On paper, it may look like sustaining 200 casualties just to kill a quarter of the enemy sounds like a terrible loss. But they should also remember the main enemy force on the front lines numbered over 2,000. Many devils were blown to bits during the retreat, and it'll take days before they can even count the enemy's losses. To back up her claim, Iris asks Sylvie for confirmation, and the green-haired girl immediately agrees. The Pearl of the North then addresses Agatha, who's clearly down about the heavy losses. She can tell Agatha hasn't really experienced battles of this scale in her past life. Agatha argues she's been in plenty of skirmishes while exploring ruins, so in a way she does have experience in conflicts. But the Pearl of the North bluntly says those aren't wars. The horrors of war go far beyond the minor conflicts you run into while exploring. Agatha feels a bit uneasy at Iris's assertive attitude. Even Anna is startled by how boldly this girl talks, as if she's seen massive wars before. After all, Iris was just a knight leader with no history of big wars. The Pearl of the North admits as much, but she points toward another crucial member of their team who has experienced major wars firsthand. That person is Phyllis. Judging from how happy she looks, it's clear she believes the war ended in their favor. She's so lost in her pleasant thoughts she doesn't even realize everyone's talking about her. Confused, she wonders why everyone's staring, or if Princess Anna has a question for her. Seeing her so clueless, everyone bursts into open laughter. From her reaction, it's obvious they don't even need to ask the question they had in mind. In a nutshell, Iris points out that the devils suffered far greater losses and were forced to flee. Neverwinter still holds its territory with Tower 1 intact. She recalls what Roland once told her. Victory or defeat is often judged by whether the set goals were achieved. And it's clear that the devils are the ones who failed to achieve theirs. The reason for their defeat, according to Iris, is simple. They were too full of themselves. If Neverwinter's army had been a typical Night Order, then creating chaos, seizing artillery positions, and launching a large-scale assault would have worked in the enemy's favor. But the First Army isn't your typical army. The devils only noticed the change in weapons and ignored the change in people, and that was their biggest mistake. Everyone in the room is surprised by Iris's cunning assessment. She goes on with more facts. From start to finish, the devils only sent a little over 50 devils. Executing a full attack strategy with such a small number is almost impossible. So, they split those 50 across 4 targets: the barracks, 2 trench lines, and the artillery post. The devil commander isn't dumb, so the reason behind this foolish strategy is obvious. He simply believed that sending 10 or so devils would be more than enough to wipe out these human bugs. That arrogance led to their downfall. Hearing this, Anna can't help but think of the worst. If the enemy hadn't made this crucial mistake and had actually treated humans as equal rivals, the First Army would have been crushed. Iris acknowledges this possibility too. If the enemy had sent all their devils into the camp, including a high-tier one, while their main foot army waited at the rear, and the spider demons launched their attacks, then First Army casualties could have spiked to 1 or even 2,000. If the devils had decided to massacre the entire camp while sacrificing their own high tiers, the losses would have been much greater. Of course, the devils still would have been annihilated by Neverwinter, and Tower Station would likely have been preserved. But with such heavy losses on both sides, it would have been hard to say who truly won. Thankfully, their arrogance cost them the chance to launch a full-scale attack. Furthermore, this battle taught the First Army a lot. For example, barracks should be built underground with reinforced roofs, capable of withstanding not just stone spikes, but also machine gun and mortar fire, among other threats. Because of the enemy's dumb mistake, the army managed to learn a ton. The scene then cuts to a high-tier devil, reporting to his supreme being. The supreme entity asks his underling about the progress of their plans, since time is running short. There's been movement in the Sky-Sea realm again, this time on an unusually large scale. Still, the entity decides not to interfere with the Sky-Sea realm for now. After all, the God-created deity is almost complete. Once it's activated, their defensive situation will flip in their favor. The underling is shocked that the legendary ultimate creation will finally be unleashed. It will break free from the constraints of magic stone veins and move freely across the world. The devils have long desired to unleash this so-called ultimate creation, and now that it's happening, the underling can barely believe it. The entity then asks about their current situation against the humans. The underling isn't proud to admit that the Western Front suffered heavy losses. According to the Army Commander's report, the humans have advanced a lot in the last 400 years, especially their fighting power, which has grown superior. Even though the Vanguard took some losses, the underling assures his superior the plan is still on track. The entity wonders if the humans' newfound strength is a result of evolution, but the underling disagrees. Their strength has nothing to do with evolution. Their tools are simply more effective now. The commander had planned to capture humans alive and seize some weapons, but the plan failed. Still, he assures his superior they'll continue looking into it. The higher being recalls the high commander who was captured by the humans. The underling explains he tried to connect with him using magic, but found nothing. When he entered his consciousness, there was only fire. Probably he is talking about the giant explosions Roland made that bastard witness. The superior decides not to waste time learning from humans. They never had anything worth learning in the past, and he believes nothing has changed. For now, the attack on the Sky-Sea realm is their main focus. He orders his underling to use their limited troops wisely. He commands him to secure the legacy shard at all costs because it's crucial for their race's ascension. With that, the superior decides to leave. For his final words, he assures his underling that when the god of creation takes action, ultimate victory will be within their grasp. The next scene cuts to somewhere else. In one of the camps, a knight holds a captive. The man's name is Joe, and he claims to know the location of treasures, but he'll only reveal details if he gets to meet the commander. And when he says commander, he means the head of the Grey Castle forces, not some random noble. Otherwise, he won't say a damn thing, because no one else has the capacity to grasp what he's about to reveal. The knight finally introduces himself as Sean, chief guard to King Roland Wimbledon of Grey Castle and captain of the Grey Castle exploration team. Being the chief guard, he demands the man to spill everything he knows about the treasure. Joe starts parroting all the details, saying the treasure tied to the Cage Mountains is currently in the hands of Count Lorenzo of Duke Island. He hasn't seen it personally, but the real danger is that the church also knows about it. Some time ago, Lorenzo exaggerated the treasure's importance in his reports just to gain praise. In the past, many top officials knew about it, but later on it didn't attract much attention from Hermes' holy city. The treasure passed into Wolfheart over the last century, and was eventually discovered by Lorenzo. This all makes sense to Sean. Joe reveals that Lorenzo currently has a few divine punishment warriors. So aside from the King of Grey Castle, no one has the power to touch Duke Island. There are about 5 to 10 divine punishment warriors under Lorenzo. Still, this doesn't answer Sean's original question, what Joe gains by giving this information away for free. The man looks uneasy before admitting that he just wants to take refuge in Neverwinter. He hopes this information will be enough for the king to pardon him for siding with the church all this time. Sean eventually considers sending the guy to Neverwinter. He makes it clear, though, he has no power to pardon him, but he also can't abandon those who choose the right path. So sending him to Neverwinter is the only option. He's confident he'll be rewarded for this good decision, and doesn't need to worry about the church's threat anymore. But suddenly the man freaks out, saying he no longer feels the need to go to Neverwinter. Instead, he begs Sean to save Farina, because she doesn't have much time left. Of course, Sean has no idea who this Farina is, or why she's running out of time. It feels like Sean played this dude just right, making him talk more than he planned. The scene then cuts to Count Lorenzo's butler. The man tosses a pouch of gold to some guy on the ground, assuring him that if he provides valid information about Grey Castle and the Witch Union, he can keep the coins. But before the happy guy can spill a word, Grey Castle's knights barge in and arrest the butler on the spot. After forcing him down, the knights reveal their agenda. The Lord of Thronetown suspects Lorenzo is hiding church remnants in his caravan. After his arrest, he'll be forced to confess everything directly to the chief. The scene then shifts to Dragon Island's port. Thunder and Margaret are docked there, surprised to see Dragon Island looking way livelier than before. Turns out it's all thanks to Thunder. Ever since merchants and sailors found out Roland Wimbledon rewards anyone who brings back valuable things, everyone's been flocking to take adventurous routes and explore uncharted lands. And the reason Thunder deserves credit is because he helped spread this news far and wide. Of course, the real credit goes to Roland Wimbledon. His decisions may seem unpredictable at times, but they're always on point. Thunder also thinks Margaret deserves credit. Without her managing the caravan for him, he couldn't have focused on one expedition after another. If he's being honest, outside of exploring, he doesn't have many strengths, and being a terrible father is one of them. He dumped all the responsibilities on her shoulders, and because of that, he feels he owes her a lot. But Margaret doesn't seem to mind, no matter how tiring it gets. I'd bet my life she has feelings for him, but of course she won't say it out loud. After some playful banter, a crew member reminds them the caravan is ready. With that, they decide to continue toward their next goal, uncharted lands, a new world. We then cut to Roland, who gets a phone call from Sister Leaf. She reports recent sabotage attacks on the tracks, but since they'd expected it, they managed to counter it. The impact on logistics isn't that big. Without spider demons, the enemy can only airdrop near the tracks and use brute force to shift them. They have to retreat before the Black River gets close. Roland is glad to hear the somewhat good news. He's especially pleased that the armored train is proving to be such an effective weapon in his arsenal. Speaking of devils, he asks if they've shown any signs of launching another large-scale attack. Sister Leaf assures him the critical points on the tracks are always under Sylvie's surveillance. They often use seagulls or the magic arc to scout the area without causing trouble. Roland warns her that the devils won't sit idle while humans threaten their hold on the fertile plains, so they need to stay alert and make sure nothing happens that could cause huge losses. After the call, Nightingale arrives with an important letter. It was sent from Donthorn Town and arrived just 10 minutes ago. What makes it interesting is that the church is apparently seeking help from Grey Castle. It seems like this help-seeking guy is Joe, and Sean helped deliver this message here. Though Nightingale questions it, pointing out these guys are the same ones who abandoned orphans at the Sanctuary Monastery, so she doesn't feel like helping them. Well, according to the letter, the church has practically ceased to exist. Their last hope betrayed them. Now that Lorenzo's butler and stewards of Duke Island have confessed and the relic treasures have been located, sending someone to Wolfheart is only a matter of time. When he says treasures, he's talking about the mysterious church relic Lorenzo possesses. Roland is sure they're now one step closer to uncovering the mystery behind that cursed temple in the Cage Mountains. Turns out Farina is currently a prisoner of Lorenzo on the Duke Island. Roland wants both her and Joe brought in for a trial. Nightingale already expected him to say this, and she doesn't mind that he isn't punishing all the church remnants harshly. After all, she's hated the church her whole life. She admits she hated the church, and also hated the humans who hunted witches. But now that the church has fallen, her resentment has pretty much faded too. In truth, she never hated humans. She hated the nobles. Roland understands it. After all, when they first met, she literally had a knife in her hand. The both continue to goof around, and they continue for a while until both get into the mood for smooching. But they are quickly interrupted when a phone call rings. Nightingale vanishes and slips back to her couch, pretending like nothing ever happened. Still, Roland picks up the call. It's Barov speaking, saying that a special visitor from the old royal capital insists on meeting him. That guest turns out to be the drama master, Sir Cajun Fiss. Roland doesn't really feel like wasting time with this old man unless it's something important. But in the end, he does meet Sir Cajun. After their short meeting, Cajun and his lackey leave. Baroff is surprised His Majesty turned down the idea of Cajun joining the Starflower troupe. The old man is convinced that if this prominent man joins, nothing could stop Starflower from becoming the kingdom's #1 troupe. Even without knowing a thing about shadow magic, just his presence alone would be enough to pull in the crowds. But Roland reminds him that things gained too easily are the least appreciated. He doesn't want to just hand Cajun a spot like that. If there's a tough assessment first, it'll leave a much stronger impression than simply saying yes to that man. He would eventually value the opportunity instead of taking it for granted. There's another problem too. If Cajun joins, the others will look like juniors in front of him, and that'll just put them under unnecessary pressure. Roland suddenly remembers Baroff had a report to finish. Maybe the old man should stop worrying about others and start worrying about himself. Of course, the old coot leaves in a frenzy. Nightingale immediately pops back the moment Baroff's gone, teasing Roland for pressuring that poor guy just to avoid an argument. The two start bantering again, but once more they're interrupted by a phone call. It's Baroff, reporting that a worker's registration handler wants to meet a witch. The worker's name is Snaketooth from Longsong District. He was originally a street rat, and the witch he wants to meet is Paper, who works in the Witch Association. The scene then shifts to Hunter Iron Axe and a few soldiers paying respect to fallen comrades. After the remembrance ceremony, the soldiers scatter to their duties. One man climbs into the train. That man is the train's captain, the one who lost his son during the Devil's Raid. Lightning approaches the old man to offer her condolences, but he finds it amusing that a little girl is trying to comfort him. He invites her inside and she takes a seat. On the table, she notices his son's ID card. As he pours a hot drink, he asks why she's here, to which she claims she just happened to fly over and stop to watch for a while. The old man is relieved to realize that she hasn't lost any friends or family. As for his boy, his name was Robert, the third in the family. He died in the artillery fight. The captain said he was brave, and as a father he's proud. The funny thing is, Robert used to be the timid one when he worked in the mines. No matter how badly the foreman bullied him, he never fought back, just went home crying to his dad. The reason the old man doesn't seem sad about his son's death is because he knew this day would come sooner or later. All his sons were ready for it. They had this deep drive to fight for Neverwinter and protect it at all costs. Turns out, Lightning also came to thank him for his contribution during the raid. But the old man insists she deserves just as much credit. Without her warning, the camp would have suffered way more losses. After easing her worries, Lightning heads back. By the way, aren't we doing way too many side quests instead of sticking to the main story? Do you guys actually enjoy exploring random NPCs, or should I just keep to the main plot? Drop it in the comments. Right then, Maggie shows up, reminding the adventurous girl about the significance of today. Today's the day Lorgar gets out of the hospital, so the two rush to the medical center. Finally, Lorgar steps out of her ward, and the trio is reunited. The wolf girl is so proud of Lightning that she even hoists her up into the air. She's already heard about Lightning's part in the Devil Ambush. She's proud that the girl pushed through her trauma and faced the challenge head-on. But Lightning still calls herself a coward. Lorgar disagrees. The fact that she's trying to overcome her struggles is already more than enough. Not relying on herself selfishly is actually progress. To celebrate their victory, Lorgar decides they should have a drink. The scene cuts to the railway construction site, where we finally meet the guy named Snaketooth we heard about earlier. Turns out, he just got his holiday approved by the administrative hall because his friend, Miss Blank, finally got permission to meet him. A little later, we cut to the train station. Out of the train comes Blank Paper, running straight toward him. The girl is over the moon to finally reunite with her friend after such a long time. As they stroll outside, Snaketooth explains how he ended up in Neverwinter, right after Roland Wimbledon reclaimed Longsong. He didn't come alone either. Tigerclaw came with him, both trying to start a better career. The girl then shares her side of the story, saying she tried searching for him everywhere. When she heard Darkhorn Alley had been demolished, she thought he had left the Western Realm entirely. She's upset that he never came looking for her after settling in Neverwinter, but Snaketooth had his own struggles. From the moment he arrived, life was rough. He and Tigerclaw worked day and night just to get by. They were so caught up in the grind that they barely had time to think of anything else. Turns out, the girl had a similar experience when she got to Neverwinter. She was constantly busy helping the construction team with cement setting, and on top of that, she assisted the chemical plant with all kinds of weird experiments. His Majesty had said her ability could speed up reactions and increase bond energy. She seriously got no clue how he even figured that stuff out. After all, according to books, the particles she vibrates are way smaller than sesame seeds. So how did Roland see them? She keeps rambling on about atoms and nerdy science stuff she read, while the love-struck boy just stares at her with soft eyes. Eventually, he gathers the courage to confess that he loves her. Turns out the girl likes him too. But here's the twist. She also likes everyone else just as much. The scene then shifts to a cozy forest resort. Here, Sister Leaf is chatting about Snaketooth and Paper's interaction. The poor guy mustered all that courage just to confess, and that's the reply he got. Leaf isn't sure if it's right for them to be eavesdropping on their friend's conversation, but Wendy insists this doesn't really count as eavesdropping, since Roland himself asked them to keep an eye on both of them. He was worried the two might pull something shady, considering their shared past as rats. Still, Leaf feels guilty because even without Roland's orders, she would have spied on them anyway. Putting her guilt aside, she sprouts a massive root out of the ground like something straight out of Jack the Giant Slayer. Once high enough, she forms a table and chairs, along with some natural drinks. The two girls sit down, chatting and relaxing. But suddenly Sister Leaf feels uneasy. Turns out there's a fire in the forest. She can't fully explain what's happening since the area is beyond her fusion abilities range, so she can't sense the details near the black smoke. But if it is a fire, someone has to stop it before it spreads. Leaf tells Wendy to go meet with the others while she stays behind. Wendy doesn't like the idea of leaving her alone, but Leaf reassures her that nothing will happen. As soon as Wendy leaves, Leaf senses the trees trembling with fear. She immediately calls out to them, urging them to shift away from the spreading flames. The scene cuts again, this time to the Council of Senior Members. After heavy debate, the General Staff concludes that the fire is likely just a diversion. The Devils want to cut off Neverwinter's supply line, but they can't actually pull that off. From the Tequila Ruins to the Northern Forest Terminal, the distance is over 500 kilometers, longer than the Plains Railway. That's way too far for the Devils to travel without burning through tons of red mist. So unless they establish an outpost nearby, reaching that area is impossible. Based on past encounters, around 500 men were enough to push the Devils back. And the forest terminal itself is basically a fortress, well-defended, permanent, and tough to breach. Roland had already planned for this scenario long ago. He knew the enemy would eventually set the forest on fire. In that case, Leaf's role would be to create a safe firebreak, keeping the flames away from the station. That firebreak would also double as an open killing ground, giving the fortress's defenders clear shots at any intruders. If the Devils tried breaking through that network of firepower, the 500 guards would tear them apart. But there's still something strange. Why would the Devils light the forest on fire and risk exposing themselves? Agatha explains that they're still undetectable for now. Sylvie, Lightning, Maggie, none of the mentioned have been able to spot a single devil on the forest front. Hearing this, Iris realizes they might be missing something. Maybe the enemy found a way to trick the scouts. Or maybe they're using a brand new weapon no one's ever seen before. The Devils don't always have to launch surprise attacks from the east or west. The north is a possibility too. Right now, Neverwinter's focus is locked on the railway construction front, but that doesn't mean they can ignore the north. To stay prepared, Iron Axe decides to send Black River's troops towards Station 0, while another platoon keeps scouting between Towers 0 and 1. The rest of the forces will stay on standby until the crisis passes. Even if a northern attack is unlikely, it's still best to put out the fire fast. For that, Iron Axe assigns Agatha to handle it. In the end, the plan is simple. Reconnaissance continues as usual. The main forces stay on the Tequila line, and the fire gets contained. Back to the current issue. If the fire keeps spreading, it'll reach the forest terminal by dusk. If the Devils don't know that Leaf can stop the fire on her own, then once night falls, that's when they'll strike. And there's only about an hour left before the sun sets and the Devils bare their fangs. We then cut to Sylvie, keeping surveillance, her gaze locked on the misty forest. For reasons even she doesn't understand, the girl feels an inexplicable sense of worry, even though she clearly knows that the great fire in the deep forest is just bait. She eventually tries to shake off the gloomy thoughts and focus on the task at hand. Suddenly she notices some kind of light in the far distance. She's confused, having no clue what it is. Maybe it's just an illusion meant to confuse her. After all, the magic eye shouldn't be able to see something that far away. But if it's not an illusion, then what the hell is it? Turns out, what she's sensing is an immense amount of magic. The magic eye has a limited range, so the fact she can see this light means the magic is so powerful that it expands beyond her magic eye's normal perception range. It's not just a matter of visible distance. Only something on this level could be the work of the cursed devil. She knows shit's about to get real. She wants Sister Leaf to run away as fast as she can. After descending the tower, she quickly orders the knight to inform Leaf to leave her current position immediately. Leaf must get as far away from the terminal as possible. Iris questions if Sylvie found something. Turns out Iris and the others had it all wrong. The only reason the Devils set the forest on fire was because they were after Sister Leaf. You see, Sister Leaf has to concentrate while controlling the forest. And when she does that, her body is physically present in one fixed location. If the enemy can see the flow of her magic, they can pinpoint her exact spot. So the fire was just a setup to create this situation. Meanwhile, Iris is shocked when she realizes Sylvie was able to observe the Devil's movements from such a massive distance. But Sylvie explains that the opponent's magic is just too overwhelming to ignore. The knight is confident the devil wouldn't be able to defeat Leaf so easily. To give perspective, Leaf can take down an entire army of mad demons by herself. But since the enemy planned all of this, they must also be prepared to counter her. The knight tries connecting multiple times, but no one answers. Iris knows the urgency of the situation, so she immediately orders the terminal station to notify Sister Leaf through the first unit. She also commands reinforcements to be prepared at once. We then cut to the girl in question, who has just managed to extinguish the fire after one exhausting day. Even then, there's still a lot of work left. Right then, the high-tier devil arrives, blasting Leaf with such force that she coughs up blood on the ground. That devilish woman, which is a male by the way, walks up to her, igniting magic in his hands. Just as he's about to tear Leaf's face apart, Ash intervenes to save the day. Leaf is surprised to see Ash here, since she was supposed to return to Neverwinter with Princess Tilly. But Ash had a gut feeling something was off, so she chose to stay behind, and her hunch was spot on. As usual, Ash is fired up, ready to face this so-called Demon Slayer, a high-tier devil. By the way, Demon Slayers are also known as Magic Slayers. They can corrupt your magic, same as what happened to Lightning. Anyway, Leaf warns her that this one is far stronger than the high-level devils they've fought before. Of course, that only excites Ash even more. She's confident she can hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Out of nowhere, the high-tier devil speaks, wondering if he's facing a transcendent witch. Leaf is shocked to see a devil capable of human speech. But for the devil, it's just evolution. They've learned to talk too. Centuries change a lot, so it's nothing to be surprised about. He mocks these so-called transcendents and launches another magical attack. Ash counters with a slash of her sword, but the attack wasn't even aimed at her. It was meant to capture Sister Leaf standing behind. She leaps at the devil again, but the monster blocks it with just the palm of his hand. After blocking Ash, the bastard strikes at Leaf once again. Once she's caught off guard, he charges at her. Leaf tries to defend herself, but she's overpowered. If this keeps up, Ash fears the green girl might end up pushing daisies. The problem is, Ash isn't nearly as strong as the Demon Slayer, so she can't really match his speed or strength. Still, she digs deep, trying to awaken the dormant power within her. With her resolve hardening to protect her ally, she taps into a new energy that lets her move faster than the devil and intercept his attack. With one strike, she sends the monster staggering backward. The bastard is amused by Ash's sudden power. Deciding to get serious, he prepares to fight for real. But before that happens, reinforcements arrive. The devil has no choice but to flee. With a single dash, he vanishes from sight. One of the divine witches rushes over to tend to Ash and Leaf. She assures them that Nana is already on her way with more support. We then cut to that devil outside the burned forest. Another devil has been waiting there with a breathing canister prepared for Lord Ursulk. The high-tier devil takes the canister and inhales deeply. After taking a few direct breaths, he orders the underling to replace the empty canister on his back. As the underling does his job, the devil laments his loss. But he expected as much after all, he was in human territory. This encounter taught him one thing. The captured devil didn't betray them. He truly had been caught by the humans. The underling reassures his boss that the humans haven't seen his full potential yet. The breathing device has been restricting the true powers. If they fought within the range of the Tower of Birth, those worm-like humans wouldn't stand a chance against him. Lord Ursulk merely considers this first attempt just a trial. For his next battle, she already has a perfect spot to fight, a graveyard fit for eternal rest. The underling complains that the Lord of Heaven has barely given them any support. If he were on their side, Ursulk wouldn't need to resort to such extreme measures. But this gender-bent devil is exhilarated after having fought humans face to face. Experiencing their strength firsthand was way more thrilling than just reading reports. He then scrapes a bullet out of his shoulder, saying all that's left is to study the humans a little more. As for the Lord, he's already helped enough. The Lord must have his own struggles to deal with. With that cryptic talk, which is way out of context for us, Ursulk decides to head back to Tequila. As far as he's concerned, the bait has already been set. Now all the devils need to do is wait. Around 2 days later, we see Ash reporting everything to Roland Wimbledon. When the fire was extinguished, Lightning scoured about 100 kilometers north and found traces left by the enemy. Based on the analysis at the scene, it was most likely caused by the spider demon passing through the forest. There weren't many of them, at least 3 or 4. Nightingale had planted the seed of symbiosis inside Sister Leaf's body, and even though she's still unconscious, her condition as a symbiote shows she isn't in much pain. This means Leaf's exhaustion is more mental than actual damage. He had already been told about her condition, so he guesses there isn't much to worry about. Still, Roland looks shaken after learning the devils are capable of human speech. Even Cabra Dabi, a high-level devil they captured alive, couldn't do that. Without forming a mental link with that thing, even basic communication was impossible. Roland also reflects on the devil's words, about how centuries can change so much, and how humans act like they're stuck in yesterday. Then there's the rumor that before the First Divine Will War, humans were actually the ones who taught devils the great knowledge. For some reason, Roland feels the devil carried a sense of pride when speaking of centuries, as if the bastard had literally lived through hundreds of years and gathered endless experience. Speaking of which, Roland's eyes practically pop out when he realizes this devil might have lived since the Alliance era, maybe even before that, which could explain how it learned to speak. Suddenly there's a knock at the door, someone reporting that Leaf is finally awake. Hearing this, Roland rushes to meet her. Oh, and let's not forget Ash is still standing there. Roland almost forgets to thank her for saving Sister Leaf. Well, the only thing Ash asks in return is that he treats Tilly well. Roland feels a little patronized hearing this, since he's already been taking good care of his sister. Inside Sister Leaf's room, everyone's already gathered. The green girl starts apologizing for worrying the king, but the only thing Roland cares about is if she's all right. He wants her to rest and forget about the forest for a while, at least until her injuries fully heal. Of course, Sister Leaf protests, insisting she needs to return to the front lines. She understands why everyone is against it, but feels lying in bed won't solve anything. Whether she stays in the forest or Neverwinter, the demon's curse won't just fade away, so resting feels meaningless. As long as she can stay in the forest, communication between the two places can still be maintained. Plus, she wants to continue preserving the experimental core she's been working on. Not only that, she plays a crucial role in moving supplies on the track construction site. All of this indirectly helps in defeating the devils. Even with all her reasoning, no one sides with her. But since she insists, Roland agrees to make an exception, on the condition that until the demon slayer carrying the curse is taken down, she won't act alone. He also assigns Ash to watch over her to ensure her safety. While the brute of a woman instantly agrees, Tilly doesn't feel too good about this. Later, when Tilly and Ash are alone, the princess asks if she actually understands the weight of Roland's orders. Of course Ash does. Not only will she stay with Sister Leaf to look after her, she'll also use her sensitivity to magical fluctuations to warn Leaf ahead of time. It makes sense that much to Tilly, but she doesn't understand what is going to happen after the warning. Ash's answer is simple. They'll wait for reinforcements to handle the fight. She might be battle-hungry, but she's not reckless like Lorgar, who charges at anything that moves. The princess is still uneasy about letting Ash go, but she reminds her woman to keep her promise. And let's be real, Ash could never forget the promise she made to stay by Tilly's side for life. We all know these two ladies are lesbians, with Ash being her licker, so there's no way she'd just walk away. Before leaving, Tilly admits she's really happy Ash was able to save Sister Leaf. She feels it'd be a waste of Ash's abilities if she just stayed glued to her side instead of helping others too. The two lesbians keep up their banter and jokes. Tilly hopes to join Ash on the battlefield someday, and she's sure that time isn't far off. Turns out Roland is working on a self-sufficient plane design with its own engine. If successful, they won't have to rely on Wendy's abilities to fly anymore. Before mass production, Roland's building a special model just for his sister, which is said to fly higher and faster than even the fiercest beast. Ash feels really happy for Tilly, though deep down she knows Tilly still won't get to fight. After all, Ash promised Roland she'd never let Tilly step onto the battlefield. She doesn't say it out loud to kill the mood, and instead promises she'll be there to watch the day of the first test flight. With that, Tilly heads off for a shower, while Ash teases her for not inviting her in. Flustered, Tilly slams the door in her face. I don't know about you guys, but have you considered the possibility that Ash might actually be a woman with a dick? For reference, she's the only woman in the series who wears pants, and she's got a zipper too. Anyhow, as Ash sits down on her couch, she reflects on the newfound abilities she was able to tap into while fighting the devil. It felt like she had stepped into an entirely new realm, where her vision, movements, and reactions seemed to rise above the surrounding world, leaving only magic to accompany her. Magic doesn't just influence the body, it shapes temperament too. If someone truly desires to achieve something through magic, then magic will guide them along that path. She recalls Phyllis's words, the wisdom she passed down before leaving. A clear and concrete goal paired with firm resolve is the only way to overcome any obstacle. In the Alliance, every recorded transcendent reached their potential through the fires of battle. Those who failed to evolve were eventually crushed in their fights against the devils. Ash starts thinking about the Alliance's 3 seats, the 3 witches who went beyond even typical transcendent witches. She desperately wants to understand what kind of trials and walls they had to break through to reach that pinnacle of power. After dwelling on it for a while, she becomes certain she knows the answer. The scene then shifts to Roland's office, where he's asking the old man Baroff about the date for the next elementary education exam. The exam is apparently scheduled for next week, with over 2,600 examinees expected to show up. Roland, however, has another project in mind, one that requires at least 500 people. As the call ends, Nightingale slips out of her mist, immediately questioning what kind of project he's referring to. Roland rustles through a stack of papers until he pulls out one in particular. Turns out it's a blueprint of an RPG. To Nightingale, though, all she sees is some fancy bamboo contraption. When Roland proudly introduces the weapon to her, the weird name alone makes her curious. It honestly sounds more like a code name than an actual weapon. Roland goes on explaining the whole backstory about its origin, but honestly, none of that is interesting to us. So we cut to somewhere else. In one of the camps, we see Joe counting his days. It's been 7 days stuck in this hellhole, and the only thing running through his mind is Farina. If she doesn't survive, he swears he'll take his own life as well. Right then, a knight enters his tent, bringing good news. His Majesty has approved the rescue plan to save Farina. They'll be heading toward Wolfheart soon. The team assigned to this operation has also arrived. After meeting up with them, they'll immediately set off for Duke Island. It's our divine punishment witches, Zoe and Betty. Joe's mind short-circuits when he realizes that only 2 men are tagging along for this journey. Zoe sizes him up right away, asking if he really is the last priest of the church. She expresses sorrow for the Starfall Queen, who had entrusted such a heavy responsibility to the church, only for them to twist it into nothing more than an organization obsessed with power and profit. It's true that Nightfall once clashed with the Tequila Witches, but Zoe still feels pity for the queen. Betty, on the other hand, is just grateful. Grateful that the conflict is nearing its end, and that they now march toward the same goal, wiping out the devils. With that, they all agree to begin the journey since the full team is now assembled. Joe, however, starts panicking at the thought of only 2 people handling the entire rescue mission. Zoe already knows what's going through his head. Calmly, she reassures him that the divine soldiers they'll face are nothing more than empty shells without true souls. For her and Betty, taking them down is more than doable. 2 days later, they finally reach Count Lorenzo's territory on Duke Island. The island has 2 docks, one on the east and one on the west, but Joe knows the docks aren't the real issue. The main problem is the castle itself. The security there is unbelievably strict. Without Lorenzo's personal approval, you can't even step foot inside. The knight waves away his concern, telling him not to worry. They already have a plan in place. With just a whistle from the knight, the soldiers drag in Lorenzo's butler. Naturally, both the butler and Joe point fingers at each other, each calling the other a traitor. The butler, Haig, spits venom at Joe for betraying the church. He's convinced that if Farina found out Joe had defected to Grey Castle, she would know who the real traitor is. The knight silences both of them with a glare, then turns to Haig, telling him to stay focused on the mission. Haig knows his objective, which is to take 2 warriors inside the castle. The knight warns him this is his only shot at redemption. It's up to Haig whether he'll seize the chance or waste it away. Though the butler understands his role, he doubts whether just 2 warriors will be enough. The knight, however, remains confident. The 2 warriors they brought are the complete form of divine punishment witches, true perfected versions. Compared to them, the trash Lorenzo possesses isn't even worth mentioning. Night falls, and Haig smuggles Zoe and others past the castle walls. Once inside, Zoe demands to know the layout of the floor and, more importantly, where Lorenzo's bedroom is located. Meanwhile, Haig is tasked with taking Joe to the dungeon to rescue Farina. The rest is none of his business. Our ladies will handle it. Haig follows his orders. He knocks on a door, and once someone answers, he barges in with Joe and the others in tow. While updating Zoe on Lorenzo's whereabouts, 2 guards stumble across them. The guards are confused at first. They clearly recognize the butler. But now it's showtime. The 2 witches make their move. Each one grabs a guard and hoists him into the air with terrifying strength. Their grips tighten until the poor men choke so hard their throats burst and blood gushes out. Then, without skipping a second, they rush the other 2 guards who had just appeared. And well, you already know how that ended. Joe just stands there in shock, going through a full-blown reality check after watching the 2 guys tear through trained guards like it was child's play. Zoe snaps him out of it, reminding him to stick to the plan. While Zoe and Betty head upstairs toward Lorenzo's bedroom, Joe is tasked with rescuing Farina. Reaching the bedroom, Zoe doesn't bother with subtlety. She kicks the door down and storms in. On the bed lies a thick-thighed woman who immediately starts screaming at the sight of the 2 witches. Ignoring her, they quickly scan the room, looking for Lorenzo. Sensing something off, they blast through a suspicious wall. Behind it is another chamber, Lorenzo's hideout, where he's surrounded by his so-called divine punishment soldiers. Zoe launches herself into the air, using Betty's boost to climb even higher. Grabbing hold of the chandelier, she farms some extra aura while raining down bullets in a storm of gunfire, slaughtering that bastard Lorenzo. Betty applauds her fellow for coming up with such unique ideas for aura farming. Moving on, Betty blows this horn-like thing, taking the divine soldiers under her control. Turns out these guys are going to be used as disposable bodies for the Tequila Witches, which is precisely why she didn't bother disposing of them. Meanwhile, a few guards come running toward the intruder. This time, Betty doesn't even have to get her hands dirty. She simply commands her divine soldiers to slaughter those fools. Cutting to Grand Duke Island's dungeon, Joe finally finds the girl he had been searching for, but her body is whipped and beaten to the point of being covered in bruises. The lover is in utter dismay, seeing his woman defiled like this. He's so stunned that he even forgets to help the soldier release her. Later, they start tending to her severe injuries. When she opens her eyes, she can't believe she has finally been released from the nightmare. For a moment, she even thinks she's just dreaming. The 2 lovers shed tears of compassion after finally reuniting, having gone through all the hardships. The woman apologizes for not being able to carry on the church's legacy. But since he already got the woman he wanted, the guy doesn't give a flying fuck about the church. He tells her she shouldn't blame herself either, because none of this was her fault. Eventually, the two spend what little time they have basking in the warmth of their love. The next day they both wake up in a room. The girl seems to have recovered somewhat from her injuries, but she has no recollection of what happened the previous night. Her lover explains that she went unconscious from sheer exhaustion. Then he drops the breaking news that Lorenzo is dead, much to the woman's shock. Though it wasn't him who killed that bastard, but His Majesty Roland Wimbledon. She finds the statement laughable. The thought of Roland helping church followers sounds impossible, but the guy assures her it's the truth. Right now, they're already at sea, heading for Neverwinter in Grey Castle. She had been unconscious for 3 days straight and only survived thanks to First Army medicine. After about an hour of filling her in on all the details, their current worries come up. Joe has already asked about Roland's trials. Turns out, followers who hadn't shed witch blood, participated in persecution, or slaughtered Grey Castle's people won't face execution. That's good news for them, since Farina was actually a vanguard warrior in the new holy city, fighting valiantly against demonic beasts every year. As for him, he was just a priest's assistant, and never had a chance to even encounter witches. This means both of them get to survive. He further assures her that once they get to Bordertown, she can have her injuries fully healed. There's a witch named Nana who can do that. He also promises to sort out their career problems and help them get back on their feet. Instead of appreciating what he did, she accuses him of making a deal with the devil just to save her. She coughs up blood from her condition, while pointing out that he's the man who caused the church's downfall. She's furious at him and doesn't want him anywhere near her. She keeps yapping a bunch of crap until a knock on the door comes, and in walks Zoe. The girl is glad to hear that Farina is still supporting the church. Supporting the church indirectly means supporting Zoe's very existence, but the girl makes it clear she only supports a church that works hard for humanity's future. She has no sympathy for some puppet of Grey Castle. That's when she's shocked to realize the body our Zoe is possessing belongs to Legion Commander Inova. But since Farina has no clue it's a witch inside Inova's body, she just thinks Inova is alive. Both Joe and Farina are confused, because the Legion Commander existed over 100 years ago. He was supposed to have died in the confrontation against the Months of Demons. And Divine Punishment warriors were devout soldiers who dedicated their body and mind to God. So how the hell is Inova roaming around freely and going up against the church? This is when Zoe hints that these bodies are nothing more than vessels for her kind. Since neither of them know the true origin, Zoe quizzes them about what they know of divine soldiers. Of course, Farina starts narrating how the soldiers are produced through rituals, controlled by the church, and used solely to fight devils and witches. Only the Hermes organization is supposed to know the transformation ritual. Zoe calls bullshit. She says the Divine Punishment Army exists only to suppress witches and uphold usurpers' rule, nothing more than a tool. The only reason divine soldiers came into existence was to preserve humanity, and it wasn't the church who originated them, it was witches. Zoe decides to spare some time to teach these two ignorant fools what's really going on. An hour passes, and Farina finds Zoe's words absurd. The idea that witches created the church, devoted everything to humanity, and are the true fearless heroes? She finds it ridiculous. Joe then asks how many like Zoe are in Neverwinter City. The witch reveals it's about 100. All of them use Divine Punishment soldier vessels produced by the church. Farina then expresses her desire to help produce Divine Punishment soldiers, so witches have more vessels to possess. But Zoe breaks it to her that the Divine Punishment Witch Project is useless now. It may have been effective 400 years ago, but today, punishment witches aren't enough to fight against devils. That's why they've turned to the human king of Grey Castle. He's the only one who can save them now. Even the weakest living witch can turn into a powerhouse with the right guidance, and Roland can provide that. In fact, he already has. Which means no witch is willing to spill blood anymore to create Divine Punishment vessels. That shit just isn't worth it. After dropping all those reality checks, Zoe leaves the room, giving the girl space to digest it all. Outside, she runs into her fellow Betty, who starts teasing her. It's rare for Zoe to talk so much to humans. From there, the two break into banter and reminisce about their old comrades. The next scene cuts to the third border city. Out in the fields, the tequila witches are holding massive RPG launchers. The way Alethea is holding it, Roland fears she might get spooked by the recoil and ricochet the rockets in random directions. So he warns her to never point the tail of the launcher at herself or anyone else. With that, the first RPG trial begins. Seems like the RPG has very limited range, exploding after it hits the ground. They all walk over to see the damage. Since it managed to crack a giant box, that alone proves it's already better than regular bullets. And this is just the first version. They open the box to check the test subject. It was a bird, but now nothing more than a scattered mess. Though Alethea isn't sure it'll be that effective against high-ranking devils, Different devils have different levels of strength, similar to transcendence and those above them. If the devil is a speed type or a slayer, it can get tricky. Landing a direct hit would be tough. Even if they see the grenade being launched, they'd still have enough time to dodge. That said, she insists this weapon is definitely epic-making. It bridges the gap between devils and mortals, making victory possible through sheer numbers. Pasha also agrees. Because this weapon lets mortals injure high-ranking devils, it is something which was unthinkable in the past. Furthermore, Pasha has a way to greatly increase its hit rate by assigning these bad boys to divine punishment witches. Only transcendence can match high-ranking devils. If one of these is fired point-blank, even the most powerful enemy can't escape. Roland assures them anyone can wield it, since this weapon only takes one person to operate. So including immortals, it will be available for divine punishment witches to use. Suddenly, a knight arrives, reporting the arrival of Zoe and Betty from Wolfheart. Looks like it's finally time to see the legendary treasure Lorenzo had been hiding. Back in Roland's office, Lord Sean presents a lead box containing the relic. He explains that he placed it inside the box as instructed and didn't let anyone else touch it except Zoe and Betty, but before sealing it, he had noticed something unusual about the relic. When Zoe returned with the ritual cube, the blue light on it had been constantly shifting. So, he paid closer attention and noticed the beam of light was pointing at him like a compass. At first he freaked out, wondering what the hell was going on. Then he realized the light wasn't pointing at him, but at the uranium coin in his pocket. From this, Roland concludes the ritual cube likely emitted light because it sensed the uranium coin. Roland dismisses Sean after praising him for the job well done. Once Sean is gone, Nightingale appears, reporting that the item inside the lead cube is definitely a magical creation. Although it looks like an unpolished stone, it's clearly not that simple. In the fog, she saw a light similar to a magic vortex, just like the magic cores in the hands of the Tequila Witches. To study this further, Roland decides to personally visit the third border city. So basically what Lorenzo discovered wasn't just a piece of uranium, but a mysterious relic that reacts to uranium. Sounds interesting. I hope that things make more sense as we go forward.